Hello, and welcome to the Mixed Media Podcast. Today we have a pretty interesting episode. I'll be talking about LA Noire 12 years later. Ben, who is not here at the moment, get to Ron go do something real quick, but we'll be talking about voices by Danny, I don't know how to say that last name, maybe Jonokuchi, yeah. And then Irving will be doing an Arguing with Reddit movie segment, so that'll be interesting. Ben's back. So, yeah, I guess we should introduce ourselves before we get started. So, my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
My name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
All right, yeah, and I want to give a special thanks to our local supporters. So we have 99 Crime, Rob Sharma, Kairos Post, and missing one, right?
99 Crime, Kairos Post. Oh, and Alex Egbert.
Yes, Alex Egbert. Yes. Okay, I was like, I think there's 5, right? So yeah, they support us for $5 a month at Locals. If you want to support us as well, you can go to mixedmediapodcast.com and click on our Locals link. From there, you can see all the perks you get, including that live whiteboard to our right, which may be making use of soon because I'm trying to get an application to have my iPad that Rutgers gave me like ages ago that I never used, like work as a second monitor for my laptop, which apparently is possible. So that'd be very convenient for drawing and stuff like that. So yeah, that is That's the intro. I guess if you don't know what Mixed Media Podcast is, it's a nice little podcast where we talk about all things art. Of course, as you heard before with our sort of occupations of choice, we do movies, music, and video games primarily, although we do a little bit of dancing and all that great stuff every once in a while. So with that, how are your guys' weeks?
Pretty bad. Well, the highlight of my week was Nathan's birthday. I don't know if you wanted me to dox you on that.
Yeah.
It was Nathan's birthday actually it wasn't the weekend, but I went to visit him on the weekend. That was definitely the best part of the week. But other than that, I think I don't know. I think I have some weird illness that is affecting like my spatial perception right now. I've never, this is like, very common in like flu-like things, and it's like a flu-like season. So, I have something. So, because of that, if I go off camera for a bit, like I might be like sensorily overloaded, like for whatever reason from the audio visual of the podcast. So I might duck out for like a moment, but like oddly enough, no coughing, no sneezing. Otherwise, I will look absolutely normal. So,
man, they really hate you with the film director disease.
Oh yeah, that's exactly why. Like, I feel like leading up to my trip to Dallas, which I take the plane on Saturday. Take the plane to Dallas, and I'm really behind schedule on all the things I had to do, and it's because of a lot of bureaucracy with like insurance and rentals, and like it's just been awful. And then I got sick, so so I'm really kind of going through it right now. If you could say a prayer for me, I would really appreciate it. So yeah. So basically bad week. Hopefully the next week is better.
Yeah. 99 Grams says happy birthday. Thank you. How about you, Ben? How was your week?
All right. Nothing terribly interesting. I've been kind of resurrecting some old things that I wrote or started to write without completing, and doing some revisions / finishing things. Like I actually have a collection of some decent melodies that I have never really done anything with, so playing around with that.
Sweet.
Nice. Good to hear. As far as things going for me this week, I guess, as a birthday, I have acquired this CD. It's not a camera. Okay, just Remember You Must Die by Polyphia.
Oh, yes.
So it's in a nice jewel case. Very happy. I was on a little like a few CDs in a row of not jewel cases. I was like, wow, that's very unfortunate. But yeah, I also I put this on Discord, but make sure join Discord by going to mixpediapodcast.com. This little art thing I made. Well, the CD's not in it. Hold on. Well, you cannot see this if you're on audio only, which means you must join the Discord actually to see it. So I put it in the general channel. It's not that far up. You can find it. But if you're on video, you can see this.
It looks so sick.
Yeah, which is like I'll describe for the audio only folks anyway, I suppose. It's like, or should I? No, I'm not going to do that. So, for the Discord. So, yeah, I'd like to, I mentioned in the Discord that I would, I considered like selling it at the Scarlet Nightmare, which is like my college, Rutgers, is like one of their 3 gaming events. And they have like this like artist booth thing where like artists can like sell things. I don't think they have to be related to games at all. But I assume that helps though, given that the crowd is probably going to be 90% gaming people. So I would like to make some changes to the design because certain things like certain font size is too low for the laser engraver. Some stuff is all centered accidentally, but that's a pretty easy fix. And one of the big issues. So actually, one of the nice things about this CD, even though I keep saying I don't like non-standard cardboard type CDs, this CD is a square, which is perfect because the Apple Music album art is square. So on Apple Music, the actual like image is square, so it just worked perfectly. We have like a jewel case, like this, right? The art actually still is square. But you have this extra hinge space on this side, which is like a very strange design for a case. I'm not really sure why it's like that, but you have that extra space. On top of that, technically speaking, the not hinge space is a little bit wider than the album art. The album art has a little bit of wiggle room, which I assume is part of like the standard. So and it's like a millimeter or 2 or whatever. It's not a big deal, but really the hinge is the big part. So figuring out a way to work that into the design and make it not look ugly, it'd be nice. Also, the jewel case is like significantly thicker. If you look at the non-standard case, this thing is very thin, which is very nice. Jewel case is quite a bit thicker. So this is actually, the jewel case is thicker than the wood that I use. The wood I use is 1/4 inch. Jewel cases, standard ones are 0.4 inches. So I'll have to figure out, I can get thicker wood, but I can't cut through a wood that's that thick. So I might just do essentially a very big engrave, to essentially sink a hole into it, if that's possible. I don't know yet. It's gonna have to do some testing. So in terms of the Scarlet Nightmare, I have like about a month and a week or something like that to figure that out. And that's assuming I even get approved, because you have to get approved to actually do that. And I think it's a first come first serve type thing, which means that I probably won't get approved by the time I sort things out. But it'd be a cool thing just to figure out anyways, And there's also 3 other gaming events. And also you could just sell it anyway, right? So it's not really like not in that big of a rush, I suppose. So yeah, it's been my week.
Nice. I also got new spectacles if you're like, oh, something's weird. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
New glasses. So I guess that was positive.
Okay. Nice. Wait, I think I saw that before, actually. Wait, did I see that before?
No, because I got it after yeah.
Didn't you get new glasses not that long ago? Like past your like aviator type glasses? There were other round ones.
Yeah, because the aviators, the lenses scratched up and they broke a bit. And I had another pair of glasses that were supposed to be temporary. I ended up wearing them for like a year. So they had the wrong prescription, so yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, any news from you guys from your industries?
I really haven't been paying attention, to be honest. Mostly because I'm just so busy. So I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'll check some headlines to see if anything interesting comes up, but otherwise, nothing from me.
So, For me, I don't know that this is necessarily recent news, but apparently, so it's news to me. Um, I guess this week Walt Disney Records released the original cast recording of something called Rogers the Musical. Now, I'm not a Marvel fan, and I've watched nothing Marvel in many years, and I've only watched like 2 films or 3 films from Marvel, and it was years ago, and they're from like the beginning of the Marvel days, and I have not watched a single Marvel show, so I don't even know what this is referring to. But apparently, in this Disney Plus show Hawkeye, in the first episode, there's a and in the background there's a Broadway musical that the characters see or something like that. And somebody decided to actually write this musical and produce it. So it's called Rogers the Musical. Don't ask me what it's about, but apparently Disney released the soundtrack album for it. So this is actually a musical that someone made based on something that appears in Hawkeye. So what on earth that means, I have no idea, but apparently it exists. So now we're getting like real world musical Broadway style musicals, being pulled out of Marvel. So it's interesting in many levels, I guess.
Let the Marvel era die, please. Tired. I don't want a musical.
Yeah. In gaming, the big news thing at the moment is that part of Microsoft's FTC court battle thing is going on, and some documents were released, and one of them is an email from Phil Spencer, the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, to, I believe it's the second in command, I'm pretty sure, whatever the title is, like vice something, I think it is. And it's from 2020, and it includes a mention of trying to acquire Nintendo, which is kind of funny. It also seems very unlikely. Not entirely sure what they were thinking at the moment.
Who's trying to acquire Nintendo?
Microsoft in 2020.
That's crazy.
I don't know if there's any even talk to Nintendo. What I'm saying, the emails made it seem like it was like some internal scheming, but nothing that ever was externalized. So that's kind of interesting. I'm very curious, if that actually they really attempted that. In my perspective, it doesn't seem like that would work because, on one hand, you would probably have the Japanese government is a little bit more protective about things being national, and so they'd probably be very upset if half their gaming industry became American. And also, Nintendo's a massive company. Obviously, Microsoft is also a massive company, I guess, but Nintendo it's kind of like an Apple in a way, where it kind of just sits on lots of money. It'd be a very weird thing to acquire because it's not like Nintendo they have a lot of cash. They have boatloads of cash on hand, so that'd be interesting. But yeah, and also they both own consoles, so that'd be even stranger. Both competing consoles. I suppose they're not directly competing in a way because they have pretty different target audiences, but they obviously have a big overlap in that gaming consoles. So yeah,
that'd be so bad for for gaming for sure. It would be really bad.
That'd be awful.
Yeah.
Last week I mentioned the whole Unity thing, and I really thought, it's an overreaction, but people are gonna get over it. And people didn't get over it, and so I think it's still overreaction, and it is kind of crazy how everywhere I look is someone's talking about Unity. The news right now is just Unity and Microsoft. There's nothing more. It's consumed everything. So yeah, that's all I have though. Yeah. All right.
Sorry, I got a chance to look at the headlines, and one thing that caught my attention because I did see this before, I just forgot. Just in passing, I didn't read anything on it, but there was a big SAG-AFTRA demonstration with a bunch of actors and directors and other famous people who attended the demonstration. I still don't know very much about the SAG strike, and I really need to like go bone up on it because I feel like this is developing into something truly fascinating, but I literally know nothing about it. I feel stupid. So after my crazy project, hopefully when I come back, I'll have time to sort of dive into it and figure out what the heck is going on. But just on a surface level, we've got, let's see, I saw some famous faces in here. Oh, this is apparently in front of Paramount? Why Paramount? Of all the studios, like Paramount needs the least punishment.
It's probably on rotation, and that's just the one that they're at, today or whatever day it was.
Okay, I was like, I mean, Paramount's on its last legs. Like, it'll probably keel over any minute now. But yeah, no, that makes sense if they're on rotation. But yeah, I find it interesting. I always find it funny when actors kind of dress up like normal people and show up to these things. There's something kind of bizarre about pretending you're someone you're not, and kind of, I guess it's a weird thing because, like, if I imagine being a director one day, which would be lovely, and I don't know. I tend to dress a certain way, and then I dress down for a strike. I can see myself doing that to sort of sympathize, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, there's an instinct in me that's like, either I'm not going to do that because I feel like I'm lying about what my normal being is like, or two, I probably would have been identifying with the crew and, well, this is not crew per se, but you know what I mean. The crew probably from the start. It's one of the reasons why my branding is mostly black. It's to be crew friendly. So anyway, yeah, that's all I know about that.
Okay, sorry, I forgot I was hosting again. Yeah, you might want to. I don't know if that statement probably wasn't immediately obvious that because I didn't realize this that your clothing, your branding is black because crew members wear black.
Yes,
so,
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
One of the reasons of many, but definitely a big reason.
Okay. All right. I guess we can move on to our first topic. Look, Kairos is typing something, but I guess I'll have to wait until that transition. So yeah. Yeah, we'll be talking about. I guess I'll introduce the thing. So you can do the little transition whenever. Oh wait, the message. What's up? Making a burger while mixed media plays on the big TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Be like Kai. Throw us on your big screen.
Underwhelming, I know. No, that's overwhelming, actually.
Whoa. There's nothing underwhelming about making a burger, first of all, just on it in itself. And then big screen mixed media just like pushes it over the top.
Mm-hmm. It's weird to think that somewhere, here I am, like, you can't see most of this room, obviously, because you have a little camera, a little window into the room. But it's like I'm in a very plain dorm, and it's kind of funny to think that somewhere I'm on someone's TV. This is just kind of strange. But, yeah. So, all right. Well, you can play the transition whenever you want.
Okay, here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome to Mixed Media Gaming. Today is a topic segment for me. Oh, sorry, it's a review for me, actually. And I'll be talking about LA Noire, a complete breakdown of LA Noire, as the thumbnail says. I like how we've corrected the spelling, because last time we did have a podcast episode about LA Noire as well, actually, but that was from Ben about the music of it, and we found out there's an E at the end of Noire in that case. So yeah, I'm going to make some references actually to that podcast. If you're watching not live, I'd recommend either watching that podcast just before or after. Either way, it's. I'm not going to reference things there where it's like, oh, well, you got to have watched it before, but it would help because you can watch it after if you like as well. Also, just realized I don't have my notes open, so give me a moment to stall with some empty words. I'll do it. Okay, I did it. Okay, so Those are the wrong notes. These are the right notes. Okay. Right. Okay. So yeah, during that podcast episode, which was quite a while ago, I think. But I said in the middle of it, I had bought it just because I was like interested in it. It's also known as a classic in gaming, so I was like, let me try it. It's a relatively short game, let's do it. I didn't really know much about what I was getting into. Obviously, I knew about the music from Ben's take on it. I knew about the fact that it's a noir, from the fact that it's called LA Noire. It's a noir in game form, which is something that this is the only game I've played like that. And I feel like there's another one. There's another noir game that is often put in the mentioned alongside with it, but I can't remember what it is at the moment. So I went into it mostly blind, I'd say. Right. I didn't look at any reviews. There's even a manual that came with it. I didn't want to read it, so I was like, all right, let's just play it. So when you get in, you hear that main theme of LA Noire, and that theme that theme is very good. Let's say I don't know how to explain it other than like it really gets you kind of like excited because it puts you in that like sort of era, I guess. It kind of feels more authentic than a lot of times in many recreations of time periods. The music will I don't know why this is. I don't have the words to explain this. But the most I can say is that it sometimes feels inauthentic or like almost disingenuous in a way, like it wasn't faithful to the time, even though it might be that way, and maybe it's my perception that makes it feel like that's not the case, or maybe in this case it's actually not very faithful to the time, but my perception at the time is that music. And in fact, the way the stuff I associate with the music is actually like World War II for some reason, because after playing the game. I re-listened to the podcast episode that Ben did, and then I went and listened to the entire soundtrack again. And the entire time, or most of it, I was thinking, if someone was like, this is a World War II era game, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense based on the music. And that does make sense because LA Noire takes place right after World War II. So it is that time period.
Oh.
So yeah, it really hooks you in with that music. And when you first start the game, first off, here's a little gripe I have. Whenever I start a game, as long as it's like possible, I'll like enter the settings menu of the game and like usually like especially for graphic settings, they're like, oh, I'm like, let me bump that up, typically, they'll be at some medium setting, or sometimes they auto detect, but oftentimes at some medium setting, and I'm like, oh, I can probably play this at higher settings for most games, right? And so I always check the settings menus and see if there's anything that is worth changing. Also, color blindness mode too. I'll turn on if that's an option. One thing this game had, I thought was interesting, was a black and white mode. So the game is by default in color, which depending on the noir film, I suppose that could be possible. But many of them were in black and white, and so it's interesting that they had default color and the black and white option. And the reason why I have a small gripe with this is because I don't know what setting to use. Because I don't know what's better, right? Like, I didn't make the game. I don't know what they made it with the intention of. I assumed with color because that was the default option. But it's interesting that I had a black and white option. Like, was it like our game probably should work better in black and white because the noir, and we kind of made it. We wanted it to be able to be played in black and white. So that's kind of the primary thing. We don't think that'll be accessible to many people. Maybe put people off, so we'll make it default color. I don't know. I didn't have any sort of explanation. So
I feel like that's like why wouldn't you just commit to one creative choice or another? Like,
right.
Like that just seems not gutsy. Like, just have guts. Commit to something. That's annoying.
Yeah. I ended up playing with color at first, and then I switched to black and white a little bit not very far at all, just to kind of compare. And I preferred the color. And it was clear. So they were made pretty separately, it seems, in that, like, when you turn it to black and white, it doesn't literally grayscale the image. It applies some filter as well before it does that, or either that, or maybe the color has the filter technically. I don't know. Yeah, but it is not the same. It's not simply just a grayscale on top of the color. I think part of the issue, the reason that is because there's not enough contrast in terms of brightness by default. Because in the first sort of they call them cases, like the missions you do or levels, or stages in other games, they call them cases because you're like a detective. So the first case you do, it's very dark in your little dark alley, and so it's just dark, So you don't have much contrast. It's a lot of black and a lot of dark grays. So what happens when you go black and white is it kind of ruins the darkness, and that everything gets a lot brighter suddenly, probably to create that contrast. It bumps up the less dark grays into brighter things, and the dark grays into a more middle gray, and so you have a more vibrant image, which is weird. I guess it's what was required to make it visible, but I'm assuming a lot of that is not manually crafted, right? It wasn't like they took that scene and were like, okay, we're gonna have the filter change for this specific scene like this, so that we have the best outcome here. It probably is like the same filter slapped onto any part of the game, which means that is just not optimal probably to play like that. So anyways, don't play in black and white, I would suggest. Even though the option is there, I don't know why they wanted to have that. It doesn't seem like it was a good idea. But that initial first case when you're in the dark alley, very strong start to the game. It really hooks you in. Everything from the music to the dialogue to the scenery, and the fact that the thing you're playing is so different than anything you've played before. You play an infinite amount of sort of war games, strategy games, or FPSs, or hero shooters, or sports games, racing games. There are a lot of them, and many of them are very different. But there's nothing like LA Noire that I've ever played. Nothing I've ever heard of like it in terms of the gameplay loop. And once again, going in from the start of sort of not knowing what I was getting into, I wasn't even quite sure what the gameplay loop was, but I was sure that it was different than anything I'd experienced before.
Question: Is this game considered a classic game?
So what's interesting is when I rewatched Ben's episode, I did refer to it as a classic, I think, a couple times. And but yeah, to answer the question, yes, I think I still think that. I still think that people typically consider it, if not, I don't know, maybe the threshold for classic, I guess, is,
of course,
I don't know what that is.
There's no like literal cannon in the sky, but
exactly. But yeah, it's considered speaking. Quite good.
Yeah.
After I, this is probably a more rigorous review in a way, in that I did more research than normal, and so I didn't want, I don't like to look at other reviews because that will might color my perception of the game, right? But after I essentially wrote my notes and had an idea, had like a pretty set, perception of the game, I did look up a review from IGN. I just looked at a review, and it was the first one was IGN, and they gave it an 8.5 out of 10. There's gonna be some hot takes here, so I'm gonna differ here a little bit. But they seem to quite like it. So yeah, and one of the reasons why I actually did look up that rating is the game is 12 years old at this point, and that means that there's some things that I realized I was lacking a sort of like temporal context to it. Like I just wasn't there when it was made, and I'll get more into that later. But yeah, the beginning really hooks you in. It tells a story about you are Detective Cole Phelps. You are a really good cop. You're a by the book kind of guy. You are a World War II veteran. You come home, and essentially this is the job taken up. You find yourself in Los Angeles, a place of widespread police corruption, and you're like, the character almost seems a little bit, naive about it, right? It's sort of like that. It has a little bit of tension there where you, the player, kind of gets, hey, there's like a lot of foreshadowing about this from this narrator who we do not know who it is, about like widespread corruption, and your character's like, oh, I'm just doing my job, everything's fine, I'm just a good guy, nothing could possibly go wrong. So really compelling hook to it, and it's like, oh, where is this going to go? Where, like you have a setup of like immediate, like, there's something
tension.
More to this than we know. Yeah, exactly. And so that really draws you in. That is, ironically, probably the most I've ever gone to a movie, a video game story. But yeah, so those first few minutes of the game, what are you doing? walking down this alley. You've been told to solve a murder case, and you're introduced to many concepts of the core gameplay loop. Essentially, you'll learn kind of most of, well, maybe not most, you'll learn a good percentage of what you're going to be doing throughout the rest of the game in that one alley, essentially. What happens is you walk down this alley, it's a dead body at the end of it, and you and your partner are supposed to go investigate what's going on. And when you walk in, there's some little tooltips in the top left that appear and sort of guide you through the game. The tutorial is not very in your face. Sort of. I'll get more into that later. But you can interact with clues around the area. So as you walk, you can click and pick up items or look at things on the floor. Examine text, stuff like that. Things that might be of interest. Some things are red herrings. Like for some reason they spam like empty like glass bottles everywhere. And like you pick it up, it never is anything useful. Like, it's always like, oh, it's just a bottle. It's like, okay. But certain things might be useful. For example, like a murder weapon, or maybe some ammunition, some casings, shell casings, if it was a firearm or something like that, right? Maybe I don't know, maybe something in his pocket. You can examine bodies too, so maybe something in the person's body, stuff like that. And you examine that, and you collect in your you carry a little notebook. And it essentially fills the notebook with some evidence, every single piece of evidence you look at, and with some helpful, back and forth talk between you and your comrade. It's kind of having a partner is kind of a nice way of vocalizing what your character's thinking, because normally, imagine if your character is alone, and you see some evidence. Well, you the player are not a detective, right? And it doesn't try to make it so that like you're not really the one, oftentimes, being the big brain solving guy, that is the character oftentimes, and so it kind of helps when the character has someone to talk to who can the character can express those big brain ideas, right? And you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, or whatever.
Instead of like talking to yourself, like
exactly
some games do,
yeah. So, where I feel like more often than not, games just don't talk. The character just doesn't say anything, and it's like, okay, well that's useful. So yeah, the other character is very, very useful for that. So yeah, that's essentially what you'll do in the starter. You'll collect a whole bunch of evidence, and sometimes evidence will lead you to certain locations you'll write down that you might have to go to, or certain key suspects. And those will all be logged in your little notebook. Now, one thing I noticed from the get-go is I remember in the episode that Ben did before, he referred to I think he was quoting the composer or something, and it was with reference to this sort of feature they have in the game where in the music, when you kind of pass by a clue, a little like some sort of music will play, essentially. The music will change in some way. And it was funny because I actually forgot that he said that, and I played the game, and I completely forgot that was the only thing that was mentioned. And then I rewatched the episode, and I was like, oh, I understand what they're talking about now. It's a little less cool and actually a little bit more hampering than it sounds.
I think that might have been the director, or like the creators, someone in the creative team who said that, not the composer, but I could be wrong. But I vaguely remember this, yes.
Yeah. Well, what it kind of sounds like, it would be something like, oh, it's very kind of dynamic music, which is kind of a cool feature. But really, it's like a little like jingle that plays. Like when you pass evidence, like a little short jingle that plays that is entirely like irrelevant to the music that's playing in the background, right? Like it's not relevant at all.
That'd have been so cool if like the music in the background dynamically changed.
Well, the music does change. Okay, there's one thing that's kind of unclear from the description is that I don't know if the thing you're referring to is the fact that when you enter a crime scene, the music changes, which is not very impressive at all. It's just the scene has changed, and so music has subsequently played to reflect that. I figured what was being talked about was specifically when you pass by evidence and you're close to it, you just walk right past it or something, the music will change or something like that. And it is literally just like a little jingle that plays. It's not something I didn't notice at first until what's kind of funny about the description too is that you said that whoever you were quoting said that it's not something that is noticeable, but when you notice it, it enhances the game or something like that. And if I recall something, it was something like the player shouldn't notice or something like that. But if they notice, it enhances the game, which is something I thought was incredibly strange because wouldn't you want them to just know because that enhances the game? Apparently, like why would that be a secret? And it literally tells you in a tooltip, hey, a little audio thing will play whenever you pass by a clue. Cool. Okay, they've enhanced the game, right? Okay, cool. Not cool, because the issue is it just ruins the entire gameplay loop of looking for evidence because you just hear it. You just walk by it, and the thing you would have normally missed, you just hear it, and it's very obvious too, the noise. Once you know it's there, it's obvious. I understand that if you don't know it's there, it actually could fade into the background music. A little jingle. It could be just a little, some little, a little topper to the music. I don't know what you want to call it, but you know it's there, and now your ear is just listening to it 24/7. And it goes from like, oh, I'm looking around for things to I'm just walking in circles around a room, and then when I hear a noise, I just click, and then I'm looking at something now. It's I kind of wish I never knew that, honestly. But on the flip side, before I knew that noise was there was another issue. The issue is that it's unclear whether certain things are able to be picked up or not. So sometimes there might be a book on a counter, and it's like, oh, certainly I can pick up that book, right? It's like, no, you can't. Why? I don't know. It's just not relevant, I guess. Oh, but that piece of paper on the counter? Oh, yeah, you can definitely pick that up. There's random bottles strewn around. Yep, you can pick all those up. It just seems to really be dependent on the item, and it's not very clear at all. It's not like the items are stylized in some kind of way. It's not some sort of mirror's edge thing where like anything you can interact with is red. It's not like some sort of SpongeBob thing where anything that moves is like differently stylized or something like that. It is literally the same as far as I can tell. There's no hint, so it's like, okay, so I kind of get having the music there to let you know, but then once it lets you know, it's like, well, now the search is over. It's just that easy.
I'm wondering then. I'm trying to think of like a corollary in film music. Really, the first thing that comes to my mind is like the theme that John Williams uses in the first two Harry Potter films, and really, second one is mostly just recycling a lot of music from the first. But really, in the first one, it's like this 3-note theme. I think he even literally titles it at one point 3-note loop. That is like I guess it's kind of like, well, this has to do with this mysterious Sorcerer's Stone and danger and Voldemort, and like obviously there's a lot of like music that especially if you're like writing in a John Williams kind of leitmotif heavy style where the music is going to tell you something, but I'm wondering if that's like an equivalent. Like we have this kind of mysterious, like, goings on, right? With like the Chamber of Secrets or the Sorcerer's Stone, and every time you get like anything that's vaguely like a clue, it's like da 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 da, something like that. And I mean, again, maybe that's something that, like, if you don't notice, like, pay much attention to the music, it goes over your head. Like, that's not a theme that anybody, like, that's like a, you're not humming that, like, Hedwig's theme. But, like, if you know it, every time you watch those films, it's a little bit kind of obnoxious, almost. Like, if you know that it's there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, it really is like just like it's so weird how the experience can be so different whether you know that thing is there or not. It's like it's completely different, and I kind of wish I don't know which one's the better option for the game. It's a hard problem to solve. Like I don't want to understand that I'm judging this like choice, but at the same time like it really is a hard problem. Because it's hard to create a game where anything on a table or shelf can be picked up, right, and can be examined. Because you can also rotate the objects when you pick them up. It's like, okay, you have to model all sides of all objects everywhere. It's a lot of objects, especially if you want to make it seem like a place that's like real, So if you have like for example, there's a part where you enter a car garage, like a mechanic's garage. I mean, a bunch of tools on a shelf, as you'd expect. That's a lot of things to model, and a lot of things you could pick up, and it also gets kind of confusing because when you click, it's not that precise. All clues are kind of scattered around in a way where like you don't have to find a clue like right next to another clue, which is something that you don't really actively think about when you're playing the game. Like sometimes you'll search like right next to a clue, but like in hindsight, like there's never a clue right next to another one. And part of the reason probably is because you don't have to be looking like when it'd be too hard to click on the right one because it's not like you're using your mouse to like point at something and click on it. It's just where your character is and the proximity is, and you click. That's just what it is, And if you're facing like somewhat around the thing, so you would have an issue if you scattered a bunch of pick-upable objects on a shelf. It's like when you click, which one are you even clicking on? Like it'd be a pain to select one, especially if one of them is actually a useful clue. So it is definitely a hard problem, and I'm not entirely sure about the solution to that problem. But the game is generally ambitious, so I commend them for taking on the challenge. Yeah, it's definitely a tough issue.
Before you continue, Stephanie Costello says, listening in for a few minutes from an island in the Atlantic. That's cool. Yeah. So we're playing in the Atlantic too, Nathan.
Yeah, we have a truly international audience at this point. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's mostly all I have to say about that little like jingle thing. The soundtrack is great. In the prior episode with Ben, he also mentioned that there were the three last songs of the soundtrack were kind of like didn't seem to fit. And the thing is, I never heard them in the game. I don't know where they were.
Are they maybe like in the credits?
Well, I should say I didn't finish playing the game, and I'll explain why later. But I got pretty far into it. I don't know. Maybe it's just sometime later, I guess, saving it for the end. I don't know. Maybe in the credits, it's possible. But yeah, I think that's generally all I have to say about the music. If you want to know more about the music, just watch our prior episode. It's a lot more in detail about the music. I just thought I would cover the music a little bit just to give sort of like context to like the stuff. Cause, with respect to the actually interaction with the game and stuff like that. But in terms of like just like simply like analyzing the music, especially compared to jazz and stuff like that, definitely watch that podcast episode. It is way better than anything I could explain. So,
no, it's always interesting to hear how it actually like works in the game, which is what it's meant to do. So
right, yeah. Stephanie Costello says off the coast of Rhode Island. Oh, wait.
Not quite international.
Okay, I was expecting. Okay, yeah. My mind went to the Caribbean, but
yeah, me too.
Okay. Yeah. So we had time. Okay. Yeah. Other than music, we have a pretty unique. Going back to gameplay. Pretty unique gameplay loop, as I mentioned before. We have the clues, of course, that you can find, but there's more to it, right? So, as for your detective work, aside from getting the clues, there's also interrogations. Interrogations are the second big part of the puzzle. So, essentially, actually, can we get? Oh man, I don't know if Irving, you can get some like video of this.
What specifically?
Maybe interrogation. I don't know if it's like an interrogation video only. That sounds kind of boring.
I can look it up.
I don't know. Okay, if not, just general footage of the game would be nice too. Just so we have a picture to assign to what I'm saying. But some stuff I'm going to say in the near future would be nice to have an image too. But yeah, so you have interrogations, and essentially after you've collected some amount of evidence, you might have to go back to the police station to interrogate someone, or maybe you found that there's a certain person of interest in the crime, and so you found out their whereabouts, maybe at their job or wherever they're at their house, and so you travel to their house or wherever it is, and you go and you talk to them. Now, the way the interrogation game works is essentially it's a scripted dialogue where there are some dialogue option choices. Usually, how it works is the format is the detective Cole Phelps will say something to the person of interest. They'll say, "Hey, I gotta inquire about this thing." The person of interest say, "Okay." And then you'll pull out your notebook, and it's a little UI menu where you can essentially select. Here on the video of the first interrogation, actually, of the entire game. I think it's the first one. I don't remember. At least that room is in the first one. That's the police interrogation room. So, I think that is the first one. Wait, it's not the first one. Sorry. Okay, I'm remembering now. But so you select from your notebook a list of questions that you can ask the person of interest. You will eventually ask all of them, but you can choose the order you want to ask them in. So when you ask a question, essentially, the character asks the question out loud, then the person of interest will say some statement about that question, right? Or maybe it's not even a question, but you might just say a statement, and then the person of interest will respond in some way, right? And then from there, you have three options. That's the game. We have three options of how to respond. You can either respond in a way that you predict that they're telling the truth, you can respond in a way that you are doubting them, or you can respond in a way that you predict that they're lying. You might be saying, what is the difference between lie and doubt? It's a very poor choice of words for the game, in my belief. The difference is, in doubt and lie, you are guessing that the person is lying. The difference is, with lie, you pull out your notebook and you can select a piece of evidence to disprove it, essentially. So you have a contradictory item in your notebook of evidence, which note that this depends on actually getting that evidence. So it's possible you don't have that actual evidence, so you have to doubt instead. Doubting is when you just simply do not have the evidence, but you are guessing that it's a lie. And then telling the truth, or saying truth, is just saying, hey, this person is saying the truth, and you go on with the conversation. Essentially, is a little conversational arm wrestle type situation, or maybe rock paper scissors. I guess might be more like it. It is interesting, and the sort of technology they're trying to leverage here is one of the earliest uses of motion capture in video games. So if you look at their faces, they look very weird.
Well, actually, I was expecting the motion capture in particular to be or like the animation in particular to be way worse. Like the face, the faces like move in such a natural way, and like it's just the graphics themselves are just bad.
Right. Usually there are there's the classic meme. Have you ever seen you definitely see this meme. I don't even know what it's called, the meme.
I think you shared it in our Discord after I talked about it last time.
I believe so. There are two memes. Yeah, one of them is essentially like this guy's face who looks like very guilty. I have the image. I don't have the image. Never mind. All right, somewhere. I found the image. Okay, I'll just post it somewhere. I'll post it in the chat, I guess. I don't know how this is going to show up on YouTube and whatever. Probably be a link. But this guy's face who looks very guilty, and sometimes the motion capture works, sometimes it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit strange looking. But I guess this is, once again, very ambitious project, one of the earliest uses of motion capture in the game. Remember, this is 12 years ago. That's kind of part of why I went to the IGN review, because I was curious, like, okay, how much of this is actually like a revolutionary thing at this time, right? I just don't know, And to IGN, it seemed to be quite nice, quite the nice new feature. So, yeah, apparently none of it, according to the IGN review, I did not get this from the developers themselves, which, by the way, is Rockstar. I did not get it from Rockstar themselves. Apparently, there is no hand animation done on the faces. It's all motion capture, which is kind of crazy. I don't know if that's supposed to include tweaks, because like I find it hard to believe that there's not even any sort of tweak going on, So that's why I say I didn't get it from Rockstar. I got it from IGN. They might have been, essentially they might have removed some information from that statement. That would have been nice to know. Maybe they're right though. I don't know. But yeah, very impressive. And so when you're interrogating people, you're supposed to use their facial expressions and their body language to tell you whether they're lying or not. It's a little bit less about what they're saying. It's more about what they look like. It took me a moment to realize this, because in my brain, I'm thinking, it's not that deep. It's just think about what they're saying, whether it aligns with the story or not. And let me tell you, I failed the first interrogation, which is supposed to be very easy.
What happens if you fail the interrogation? You're like, yeah, you're not guilty, and the guy is guilty. Like, does that just wreck the game?
So what happens is essentially I give a lot of credit to the writers because they have to deal with that, right? Especially because the interrogation goes on even if you select the wrong answer. So it's like, how do you get all the vocal lines to, especially if you ask the questions in different orders too, how do you get things to still work smoothly? And it does work pretty well. Some hiccups, some dialogue options where it's like, that didn't really make sense. It doesn't quite make sense given what's been said before, but it's close. How do you get that all to work when you can have a wrong answer? Like, how does that affect the whole investigation? Well, you can't lose an investigation. You can only get the way that investigations work is that you're rated on 1 to 5 stars, or for the whole case, you're rated for 1 to 5 stars. And so, if you get all the wrong answers on an interrogation, let's say they're lying the entire time and you put truth the entire time, it may be that you miss out on a new person of interest or something like that. But the game will still get you to the end, which is very impressive. It'll still get you to, like, the point of putting somebody in jail, which is kind of funny. And sometimes there are, like, for example, I got one ending where I did particularly bad, and I put one person in jail, but another person who was also culpable. It was part of the crime, right? But I thought he was innocent, or at least I chose the wrong. I didn't think he was innocent. I chose the wrong options, and essentially, I did not get the information I needed to get out of him, and so he went free. And that was pretty cool. It was like, wait, that kind of felt kind of smooth. Like, I didn't really feel very gamey there. But I will say this: it is very hard. Either that, or I'm very bad at determining based on body language. I don't know, but sometimes I wish there was like a replay thing you could do to, like, look at them again. I understand. I guess this is not really like. I guess part of the game is like a one. You have one shot to look at them and figure it out.
But it'd be cool if they had like a camera, like with film, and they could just like rewind that. That could be. Yeah. Actually, fun fact. I happen to know a random large amount about police interrogations. It's one of the really random pockets of knowledge that I have. I say this probably every other show that I have a random pocket of knowledge about something. But they do this a lot in police interrogations. It's often why there's someone in the other room in the behind the what do you call that? The one-way
mirror?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The other person often is looking at a video feed, but what people don't realize is they're often rewinding and looking back at different parts closer, because oftentimes real time it's hard to like, you lack context sometimes, you get new context, and you want to reinterpret some body language from prior to. And sometimes it's because, it's just hard to notice all the body language at once. Human body language is very nuanced, and a lot of times it's like very small things can give you a little clue into what direction the interrogation should go into. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be. I guess that would be. That'd be a nice feature. They have instead, like, when you finish talking and everyone's finished talking, you can press a button to sort of like look up from your notebook and look at the person, and you're just looking at their face. The thing is, it's just kind of static. It's like, I kind of wish I had the expression in the moment. I feel like that's oftentimes a lot more telling than them just sitting there staring at you and maybe looking guilty, maybe not. Oftentimes it's a bit hard to tell if they're guilty by them just looking at you blankly. So yeah, they do have a transcript though. It's very strange how you get to it. You press escape, which is typically for pause. It brings up a transcript. Then you press escape again, and then you're brought to the pause menu. Then you press escape again, then you're brought back to the game. I don't know why they did it like that. I don't know why there's not just a button for the transcripts. They chose to make it the pause button, but then the pause button still pauses. So, yeah, I don't know. A little bit strange. I wonder if it's a cramming for Xbox controllers, but I don't think there are, or console controllers in general, but I don't think there are that many buttons where that would need to happen. Like, you have a whole D-pad, for example, that I don't know what you use it for. Because I know on console, you use the right buttons to do like the truth, lie, or doubt thing. So I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so there are a couple cases where I felt like the game was a little bit unfair with the true, lie, doubt game. So, for example, sometimes the characters don't give you like straight answers. I don't know what to put there. So, for example, one that came out was like, I'm investigating a reported stolen car. So I go to the car salesman and I ask, how'd you get the car? And he said something like along the lines of, girl just wandered in, girl being the car, right? And it's a sarcastic remark about the car just entering the lot, right? So obviously it did not happen, okay? So is it truth, lie, or doubt? I don't know.
Because it's kind of a non-answer.
There's a false dichotomy here. If it was true or false, then, well, I guess it's like false, literally, right? But it's truth or lie. It's not like a like a lie, as in like it's not like an act of deception, right? But it's also not the truth.
It is deception in that he's being vague, right?
Sure, but no, but not necessarily, because he could just mean like okay, I guess that's the case. But so so for some context, the character, the car salesman, is kind of like established before. He's a little bit of a joker, so he's kind of like he's not like he's in that moment trying to escape the question, or maybe he is. I don't know, but the entire time he's always making these sort of like dumb jokes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like kind of just part of his character, regardless of him being innocent or not. That it seems like an appropriate thing for him to say in that moment. You know, I feel like the correct response would be like, what's just the actual answer, man? Like, I gotta know, you know? like how'd you get it, you know? Like, I don't want to accuse him of saying a lie. I don't remember what the actual... Oh, I think I said truth. Because, like, I don't think he's being deceptive in the statement. But the answer was actually doubt, because there's no evidence otherwise, I suppose, right? But that is supposedly, you know, I don't know, a not truthful statement, literally, I guess? Obviously, I don't know. So... I wish they just didn't have sarcastic statements at all, or anything, you know, that's kind of ambiguous like that, where it's like, it doesn't really fit in any category. At least without, like, some explanation as to why it should fit there, you know? Maybe the devs sat me down and were like, okay, this is why it's a doubt. I'll be like, okay, you know, I get it. But it's not immediately obvious, so... there were some times where I felt a little bit cheated. But yeah, it's very interesting how you can never fail the interrogations, because it just... the game just keeps going on. You know, there's no restarting. The whole thing is fluid. The one time where you can restart, at least the one time I actually had to restart, is during combat. So aside from interrogations and sort of, I'll consider that sort of like in detective work. I suppose the combat is also technically detective work. The interrogation and evidence gathering is more like, you know, detective work as in not the job occupation detective, as in, you know, you get what I'm saying? Like looking for things and trying to figure things out, you know, that kind of detective, you know what I'm saying? Aside from that, there's also combat, so occasionally, definitely a smaller aspect of the game, occasionally there will be some, you know, some criminal or something who does not take kindly to your presence and would like to murder you, or something at the moment. So, there are two types of combat. There is shooting, and there is fist fighting. So shooting is quite self-explanatory. It is, you know, you point and you click at somebody and they try to click you, I suppose. In an AI sort of way, you know. It's nothing particularly remarkable. It kind of feels, I suppose, because it is a Rockstar game. It kind of feels like certain GTA missions where you're specifically indoors in a combat setting. I don't really know how to explain the feeling, other than like, you just use cover, and then when you see someone, you just right-click to aim, and then you click and you shoot. I don't know. There's really not that much to it. It's not particularly interesting. I suppose it serves for moments of higher tension, although those combat moments are kind of long to the point where it feels like way too drawn out for a moment of tension. It is, especially because you're never forced to move. That's I guess that's kind of part of the GTA-ness, although that's kind of common in many games, like for example, like some shooter campaigns like in COD or Battlefield, where like you could just kind of sit behind cover forever and like the combat will never move forward or move in any direction. You're not pressed on time. You can just kind of wait there forever, and AI will just sit in wherever it is, maybe move cover every once in a while and shoot at you, even though you're behind cover and they can't even see you, and repeat over and over again. So it is your job to push progress. What that means is, if there's no incentive to push progress, and you get hit, and you know you can just wait behind cover to regain health after a certain amount of time, that means these combat sequences are too long for a moment of tension, especially because they're not tense because you're just sitting behind cover the entire time. If it was like continuous combat, that's different. But it is sitting behind a box for some time and healing and then shooting again, you know? Not particularly a moment of tension. So kind of wish that those shooting moments were cut down, or there's some sort of like, you know, time, some sort of reason to progress, like force you to progress, right? Otherwise, they're very easy. Although I think lost like one of them one time, and then you just restart the sequence, and that's it, you know. There's also fist fighting, which is it's a sort of rock paper scissors. I think you can punch, dodge, or is it push the last one? Maybe something along the lines of that. Whereas, you know, you can block a punch. I think you can push someone who's blocking. Or if they're not doing anything, you know, you can just punch them. Or if they're in the middle of pushing, I suppose you could punch them as well. It looks kind of nice in terms of animation. I guess it's a little bit more involved. Oh, I find that the AI is very bad. You can just mostly punch. You just kind of spam, and then like it'll get you pretty far. So yeah, that's the combat. There's nothing particularly special. It kind of just feels like something that was kind of thrown in there just because, like, oh, video game detective, he has a gun, he can use it. Might as well throw that in there. It's not that interesting. The third and sort of final part of the gameplay loop that you might be doing, aside from interrogations and the detective work and combat, is traveling. So once again, this is a Rockstar game, and you must have travel. The game takes place in an open world setting, so there is a whole lot of driving from and to locations, and that honestly kind of ejects you out of the world. The reason being is that in GTA it's not as much of an issue because you are a criminal and you don't really care about the law. But if you're playing as a detective and you're you're playing a video game and the place you're trying to travel to is like 5 minutes away if you drive normal speed, you're not going to drive normal speed. You're going to be speeding the entire time and taking red lights and doing everything that's very risky. We do get points taken away from your 5-star rating at the end of it for essentially causing property damage, or if you hit a person, I suppose, too. Which makes it a little bit more interesting, I guess, than GTA, where it's like there is literally no consequence to me driving, anywhere. In this game, you can't quite be insane. Well, you can be insane. Sorry, you can't be GTA insane. I guess is the difference. It really ejects you from the world because you're doing all this immersive stuff, and then it's like, oh, I go to the police station to interrogate someone. Let me just speed around the corners and stuff like that and drift because why would I not do that? It takes too long otherwise. They could have fixed this by making the map a lot smaller. They could have enforced a speed limit to your car. Like, why is it that when you press
what's the point
forwards,
of it being open world to begin with? I guess that's really my question. It's such a linear story. Why be open world?
Oh, okay. Technically, it's not a linear story because, credit to the writers here, when you get locations of interest, you can visit them. Sometimes you can visit them in any order you want to. Sometimes it's literally like, okay, you only have one location that you know of that's like of interest, right? So you have to go there. That's pretty common. But oftentimes it's like 2 locations, and it's like sometimes even your partner will suggest, hey, let's go here. We don't have to. You can go somewhere else, actually.
But does it change the story, like, depending on which one you go first? Or, like, does it change anything about...
Yeah, so the thing about this game is because I haven't played it multiple times, it is hard for me to know that. It always feels pretty good, as in, like, it tends to make sense. In fact, there are situations where I've ended the entire case without visiting every location. So presumably, or actually, one time, actually, it was kind of interesting, was I did an interrogation. I successfully did it to the point where I got some evidence that essentially made it so that all the other locations were not relevant. I could just go to the last one, if you get what I'm saying. Which was pretty cool in a way. So yeah, although this doesn't mean it has to be open world. You can just make it so you click on a location and you just travel there like by default, because it's not like it's that common for you to actually have to have more than one option. So I don't know. I don't really get it.
Yeah, Kai says, do you think just having the car be fast travel would be preferable?
Oh, so exactly what I was saying. Yeah. Yes. Although, I suppose this could be a problem with the last. I consider this part of the walking and driving, sort of transportation gameplay loop. There's also chases. So sometimes you're in a high-speed chase, and I guess you needed an open world for that, or not necessarily. You can have a sort of set route, and you just don't design anything in the game aside from that. But I guess you could say, well, what's the point of making some road just for all the scenery just for one little chase? You can have it always present and always available. The cost is always, but you have to consider the cost is always the same, right? You made that road no matter what. In fact, the cost is more now that you've committed to making the entire thing open world. So, does that really justify making an open world? I don't really think so. So there are chases as well. I found them actually more entertaining than GTA chases. Kind of funny, because I played GTA 5, which came out considerably after LA Noire. The reason being is for GTA 5, you can clearly tell there is rubber banding, which is the idea that the closer you get to success in some metric, in the case of GTA 5 chases, it's getting close to the car you're chasing, the goal becomes harder to obtain. So in the case of GTA, cars will literally move faster as you approach them while you're chasing them. It's not immediately noticeable oftentimes unless you do something like you take a shortcut, like you cut through some grass the other car didn't do, and it's like the car starts like going Mach 5 away from you. It's like, what? Like, come on. In GTA, you will never catch up to the car. It's scripted. When the game wants you to get to the car, you'll get to the car. Usually, what happens is the car ends in some location, and you're actually caught up to it, and then you ended up in that location. And the car's both stopped or something like that. Car crashes, whatever it is. So, yeah. In LA Noire, I've played a chase a couple times. I did replay a case actually a couple times. I played a chase I think 3 times, where every time I was able to actually touch the car, which I was like, oh, interesting, because GTA 5, the cars are so scripted that they're not actually physically they don't physically interact with anything else. So there are some speedrunners who are insane and have figured out how to optimize GTA 5 to its maximum potential. And so they're able to speedrun in a way where they can actually get in front of the car that's rubber banding at Mach 5. And what that means is that you can actually you can touch the car, right? They can at least get to where the car is and they can touch the car. The car does not react to your touch. You're not supposed to ever be able to touch the car, right? So it's literally on a rail, essentially. In LA Noire, that's not the case, actually. I've hit the car and the car starts turning a little bit. I'm like, whoa, wait, I actually didn't expect that to happen because I assumed it was just the same thing as their other game, GTA 5, right? Especially given this game came out earlier, I thought it'd be the same sort of thing. But no, the car actually moves. So I'm not really sure why they regressed it that way.
But what happens when you do hit the car? So
I think there might be still a bit of rubber banding because I was never able to hit the car in a way that would disable it. You know what I'm saying? I was always able to hit it where it will do a little fishtail or something like that. I was never able to do a full pit maneuver on the car or something, right? So as you can see in the video right now, you have a little chase here.
These cars are sick. They can do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man. He's shooting in the middle of the street.
What's happening here? I did not get here, by the way, so I don't know what is. This seems a little bit less grounded than normal. But, we got the car. Look at that. See, the car's actually being oh.
Oh man, that was really cinematic, though. I gotta say.
Was this car properly disabled? Maybe.
Yeah.
That's one thing I love, by the way, is the cutscenes melt into where the game, the gameplay ended. You know what I'm saying? So the car crashed there. The animation that just played was where the car crashed. There was no teleportation, which happens in so many games where you enter a cutscene and they only animated the game for one specific location, right? So everything teleports to that location, even if it's slightly off or whatever, and you can tell. In this game, you'll be chasing somebody, and when you catch up to them, wherever they are, that's where they are. I'm thinking specifically about a scene where you're chasing somebody on foot. That happens sometimes. Chasing on foot is not very, it's not that riveting, I'll say, because considering the entirety of the gameplay is just kind of holding Shift and W and then looking at where the person's going, and that's not very hard to do at all compared to driving a car or something. When you get to them, it's I stopped here. The cutscene starts here, and I was there when I it all feels seamless, which is very nice. Once again, a very strange regression because I'm fairly certain in GTA. Actually, no, in GTA it's not the case. There are definitely moments where you could land on some checkpoint and your car flips upside down, and when the cutscene starts, your car is right side up, and it's perfectly fine. And there's no damage in the car anymore or something, So very strange regression. Very curious why that happened. But as you can see, this game is very ambitious. There's a lot going on here. That's really good to see in terms of just trying to push the envelope here. So that's sort of all the gameplay that there kind of is. Aside from those things, there's also the part of the traveling gameplay loop I consider is following people. Sometimes you're given this task to just follow people at a safe distance because you don't want them to know you're telling you. It's not that interesting. It's just driving at speed limit or walking kind of far behind somebody else. It's not that interesting. This game also has the crime of having your character walk faster than NPCs always. So if you have your partner is walking somewhere for some reason, they'll just walk slower than you. I don't know why. I don't know why you don't. They just because here's the thing is the issue. There are some expected things for the game, right? In terms of driving, for example, it's expected that you can just drive at whatever speed limit you want to, even though realistically speaking, your character would never do that. Your character, Cole Phelps, the most like goody two shoes person in the game, who's not like driving around like a demon, a speed demon. But they let you do that because it's kind of the expected thing. Same thing with walking. It's expected that when you walk in games, you're actually really always jogging, almost always, because it just takes a long time to walk places, I guess, is the thing. And gamers are impatient. So you always are, at least a brisk walk to a jog type of pace when you're just trying to do a normal walk. So what happens is all the NPCs, it would look very strange if everyone was jogging. That would be very strange if everyone, everywhere was just jogging all the time. All the pedestrians were just jogging. So they all walk, including your companions and other people who are relevant to the story, who you may be following or maybe following you.
There are games that will force you to go NPC speed for NPC following sections.
There are, and this game is not one of them, unfortunately. So it's kind of unfortunate, but yeah, So yeah, that's the gameplay. Look at notes. See what is next. Oh yeah, there are some sort of random issues and bugs. Like one of them is when you leave a crime scene area, there's crime scene music that plays, and when you leave some of them, sometimes the music will just abruptly end. It doesn't fade. It literally stops. Mid note, it is gone. It goes from whatever volume to 0. It's not there anymore. Very abruptly. It is very strange. I don't know why it's like that, but that's how it is. There's also I accidentally soft locked the game. It seems I cannot progress in the game anymore. That's horrible. I don't know why I did, but what's supposed to happen is there are many different I forget what they're called. Desks. So what's kind of nice is the main menu is somewhat I don't know, it's I don't know what the actual name for it is. Maybe maybe Irving as a film name for this, but it's diegetic music, but it's not music. It's the menu's in the world. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you're saying? Oh, I get it. The menu is part of the set.
Dead Space, where the menu is it's some computer terminal or something that you're physically interacting with, or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a film term. There wouldn't be one because there's no interaction in film. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Never mind. Maybe it's a gaming term for it. I just don't know. But you have sort of the part of the menu is a physical desk, and so on each desk is a folder, and each folder contains cases for different. There's I think 4 different types of cases. There's traffic cases. There's vice cases. There's homicide cases, and there's arson cases. Those are the 4 types. And there's a patrol case. I think is the 5th one actually. The patrol case is the main story essentially, and all the other cases are essentially side mission type things. I am unable. I cannot unlock any new main story patrol cases. I don't know why. I've played all of the other main missions, all the patrol cases. I played every other side case. Does not unlock. I thought maybe there's a star. There's no required rating you have to get for patrol cases. In fact, patrol cases don't give you a rating, I believe, which is kind of strange. But you just progress once you finish it. I just was not able to progress. I don't know why. So I don't really want to restart the game. So I don't really know what to do. I've replayed many missions. Nothing seems to fix it. So I don't know. That's a very big downside of the game. I seem to be the only person in existence who has had this issue. So yeah, very strange. There's a critical bug, I suppose. There are. I think there's some other glitch I want to mention, but I don't really see it in my notes. So. Oh yeah, okay. So this is not really a bug, but it's one of those things where it sort of ejects you from the world. Some of the cutscenes are a little bit especially there's some plot points or cutscenes don't really make sense, and it really kind of throws you off. So, for example, there's one point where you're entering a facility that hands out they manufacture these I don't know what you call them. It's like something that doesn't exist anywhere, I don't think. So like it's like an old thing. It's like a place that manufactures papers for like car sales or something like that. I think because, you know, back in the day before you had the computers, you record all the car sales on paper, and those things had to be like official and stuff, right, for legal reasons. And so there was this place that manufactured these like car slip things that were used for official purposes, and there were some shady things that potentially going on in there. So the detective and your partner go and investigate it, right? And for some reason, you guys decide, hey, before we enter, let's not knock on the door or like just like enter normally. Like, let's like pull out our guns and then like enter by force. And then your partner's like, oh, no, sorry. Cole Phelps is like, hey, maybe you should call for backup first. And your partner's like, no, why would we do that? Why would we ever do that? And so then you just enter. It's like, plot-wise, there's no reason to believe that anyone in that building is like violent for some reason. Like it was so caught me so off guard. Like wait, we're entering like a paper manufacturing plant, right? Like we're just making paper, right? Like maybe they're doing nefarious things. Like maybe they're part of some like car laundering business, right? But like they might not be. First off, like
well, you need a
that
warrant anyway in real life.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I think part of the thing is like I think warrants are actually something that's mentioned a couple times in the game, and like the reason that a lot of times it doesn't exist is like people are just corrupt, you know. So it's like, oh, we don't need one, we're going in type thing, you know. It's part of the story. So your partner, by the way, in this particular in the patrol case, your partner changes per case, but in the patrol portfolio, all those cases, your partner's the same, and he's definitely more of a chaotic guy, a little bit less likely to abide by law. So that kind of makes a bit more sense. But the idea of like, hey, it's going guns blazing, like it's this paper manufacturing plant that might be connected to a car laundering ring, kind of crazy. And when you enter, everyone has a gun in there and starts shooting at you. It's like, wait, what? It's like people out there with like shotguns. It's like, wait, what's going on here?
He had the feeling, like the vibe, it just hit him. It was like, they've got guns in there, I know.
Yeah, but it's like such a weird, like, you're just playing and it's like, oh, well, this makes no sense. And it's like, wait, they were right, but like, why were they right? Like, this made no sense. Like, also, like, I think there was probably some plausible deniability about like what was going on there in the end. Like, why that's like literal people with shotguns in there, like trying to murder you. It was like, whoa, like.
Well, hey, wait. To be fair, though, to be 100% fair, if someone's busting into your place, guns blazing, they didn't announce themselves as police. I mean, no.
So I think what happens is they did announce themselves as police and were immediately fired upon. As like,
I see. Okay, never mind.
So. Yeah, Keikaro says they have guns because of video games. Yes, they carry shotguns on their person. Actually, it wasn't even like next to them. They carry it on their person at all times.
Just pull out my pocket shotgun.
They bring it to work every single day.
I mean, they're bad guys, right? So what? Of course they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh man. But yes, was that? There's like a scene where like you're like, it's like a wild cutscene. You're chasing after some dude. You catch up to him, but it goes from like you playing to like a scripted cutscene. He turns around the corner. You run past him. You run past the corner, and I think what happens is like, is this the right scene? It's like a scene where like you run past the corner. He punches you. He hits you. He punches you. Right? You get knocked out or something like that. And then like, you wake up. He's just like in handcuffs, and it's like, what like how? Didn't I just lose? Like what's happened? So another scene during this wild chase, right? And in the middle of the chase, like when it's done, you get slapped with this loading screen, which is pretty rare in the game. So I don't know why that happened, right? And then the suspect ends up back in like the shop he was in originally after he ran away, with no handcuffs on him, just talking to the detectives. Like as if he didn't just commit like a felony, like he's just like oh yeah, so like yeah, I ran away, but like I'm back now, like somehow I don't know through the power of loading screen I'm back, and I'm not in handcuffs. Very strange. Random things like this will happen, where it's like that didn't make any sense, and it feels like these things are only accepted because it's a video game. Like if this happened in a movie, it'd be so weird, like if you saw this in a movie, you would just be like why did that happen, because it's a video game, And unfortunately, video games are held to a little bit less of standard in terms of narrative. You can have weird things like this happen because this is somewhat normal. But I don't know. It bothers me. So yeah. Aside from that, I think that is most of what I have to say. Some small things aside, as well. So like the tips that appear in the top left corner throughout the game tell you, hey, essentially explain how to play the game. Sometimes they go by too fast or too slow. Sometimes it feels like they're like immediately gone. I don't know why. Sometimes they're like there on the screen for like a million years, and it's like, okay, I read it like a minute ago, but all right, we're still there this time. Sometimes like you gave me 3 seconds to read it with some relatively long text. Very strange. Kihara says, your expectations of basic visual continuity in video games is valid. Yes. Yeah. I think that is... Oh! It's one last thing, I think. So throughout the game, there are various save points. You can't manually save the game. For some reason, you were given 5 save slots as if we're playing on like a Nintendo DS, like the original one. I don't know why. Like on a PC, I would have save slots, but there are save slots. There are 5. I don't know. Games still do this. I do not understand it. I don't understand the logic behind having a save slot. I guess I haven't like looked up why save slots exist, but just the logical thing to me is like, oh, it's for saving space on things like a Nintendo DS cartridge, right? With limited amount of space. When you're in like the modern times, where you have like a PC or something like that, right? It's like why, or an Xbox or PlayStation, why are we limiting our saves to 5? Like I don't know. It's very strange. Can I just manage however many saves I want to have? Even if it's like a massive like, I don't know what kind of saves you're having that actually matter in terms of size, but why can't I just decide how many I can have and just delete the ones I don't need anymore? I don't know. It's strange. I didn't need 5. I didn't need more than 5 anyway. It's just weird because it autosaves, and the autosaves consumes some of those 5. And so if I go to save or something like that, it's like, or if I want to start a new case, it's like, oh, do you want to overwrite the save? It's like a strange, archaic thing to ask me, but I guess so. Random, but small thing, I guess. But yeah, there are save points in the game. You cannot just leave at any time and save manually, which is nice in a way. Because it sort of stops you at a nice place of like, okay, well, the game is telling me it is acceptable to end here, like an act is ended or something like that. It's like a nice little break point. But the issue is with the video game format is that it'll a problem when you're playing a detective game with a bunch of clues. You stop playing the game, you come back later, and you forget everything that just happened in the game, and so you don't remember or not everything. You don't remember the general idea, but your detective, it's like the particular things that matter, right? Particular things you're being tested on. Like, do you remember this exact thing about the situation? So Kikara says, putting limited save slots in my next game just for Nathan. Thanks.
Just for that retro feel.
Yeah, retro feel. I don't know. And man, LA Noire isn't even like that old. You know what I'm saying? And it's old, but it came out in 2011. It's not like you still didn't need save slots in 2011 on PC or console or on many consoles. Especially PC. Like PC, come on. It's like expandable storage easily. I don't know. It's very strange, but whatever. There's no cartridge. I understand if you're using something where like the cartridge is the only storage thing there, so you're really on confined space. When your storage is not confined to a cartridge of some sort, it's like I don't get it. But whatever. But yeah, you just kind of forget things. Some particular things that happen. You forget people's names. Someone will mention somebody, and you're like, who even is that? And you can enter your notebook and look at the person, but the descriptions are relatively brief, so it's kind of hard to remember like where you left off on. And that's just a hard problem, right? It's like maybe like video games shouldn't be this long. Then you just remember the entire thing. It'd be that easy. I do honestly, however,
I would play so many more like if you made like a AAA LA Noire style game that was about, I'm gonna make up a number, 6 hours, I'd play so many more.
The issue is like the overhead cost of that would be kind of crazy, relatively speaking.
But you can make a series and not have to redo anything. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say actually, the nice thing about LA Noire cases though, if you don't live in the middle, is that they're relatively they're not really continuous like that. So like you can hop into one case. The case is relatively short. you could finish it in an hour and a half or something like that, right? And then you can go on to the next case. But the case is not the same. You're not required to play the previous case to know what's going on in the next case. It's a different ultimate case. Although I guess for overarching story reasons, but that's a lot less like important to remember in detail type thing. That's definitely not like that's not like as far as I've gotten, there's not really many like particular details about the main story. It's a lot of backstory about Cole Phelps, and it's like, he was a veteran, and like he was like very really abided by law. Not really much more than that. That reminds me. Another point of random story nonsense was like, there's a murder you solve or something like that, and you get like promoted because everyone's like, oh man, like you're a hero of the town, like you solved this murder case. The murder case was stupid easy. It was like something. It was like the first thing, right? So obviously for tutorial sake, it's going to be easy. But even like the implications of what this murder like it's like, I don't know, man. Like this is not that complicated, for detectives to figure out. I feel like to put the puzzle pieces together, even in real life. So I don't know if it was kind of weird because like people will talk about you. So when you walk around, NPCs will be like, "Oh, isn't that guy who solved that murder case?" It's like, dude, it was the most mundane like someone was just like I think I forget what caused the murder. I don't know, but it really wasn't that like, it wasn't like a big scheme. It wasn't like a car laundering scheme. You know what I'm saying? Like that's more like you bust a car laundering scheme. It's like, there's like a lot of moving parts here, and like people to get everyone in on it. It's like, okay, it's a lot of people. That a lot of stuff we might have figured out, right? But it was like literally one dude who like just like I forget, he didn't like some dude for some reason and killed him, and it's like, like. It wasn't like he was like a notorious guy either, you know what I'm saying? It's not like this guy was famous. Like, it's like, why do people know about this random murder that happened in Los Angeles? It's not like a small town, Like,
hey, what you trying to say about Los Angeles?
According to this game, it seems quite crime-ridden, so... there's a whole arson case, so, yeah, I don't know, very strange. You're looking up like some sort of like genius. Although... There's a little speculation here. I'm gonna guess that maybe it's part of the story actually. Like part of the latest story is that he was promoted easily because he was so naive. So people wouldn't like think anything about him in terms of like he wouldn't question anything. He's sort of the figurehead of the LA Police Department. That's a little little speculation. I don't really know. I could be wrong. I didn't play the whole game, so. But that was my idea. The only issue is that potentially like. Too few people, no one questions it is the issue. Like your partner doesn't question it. It's not like, oh, why are you like famous for like this thing like that required no work to you? Also, why isn't he famous either? Like he was also working on the same case. Why isn't he famous? So yeah, but that's all I have to say about the game. I think re-looking at my notes one more time.
While you're doing that, I was actually surprised looking at the real gameplay that it's not very visually noir, other than the like color palettes used for the like assets themselves. I feel like that's the only like thing that they did to make it look like noir film. But like it's like, I mean, it's missing like a few like key noir tropes. One of which I'm like just surprised it wasn't there at all. I don't know if it's a lighting effects issue, but like just hard light sources, like. Where you're just like light shafts and like things like that. That's like, I feel like that out of anything that's like required. Right. You can see it even in the episode artwork. I thought it would look more like the episode artwork, where you have like a hard light source coming from the characters. The character's right side. I thought more stuff would look like that basically.
Here's like I probably should have mentioned. Is the beginning of the game, I said it kind of hooks you in, and part of that is because it's the only part of the game that has that noir, that like more faithful noir style to it. I don't know what happened to it after that. Everything from the music of the main menu, the main theme, to the main menu itself. I'm trying to get an image of it. I don't know why the only image of it is kind of dank, but I'll send it anyways, I guess. It's very... it kind of works. I'll put it in the stream chat, even though it'll only show up on Discord, I believe. it's also very hard to see, but essentially for audio only, anyways, it's kind of like a sort of like a, I don't want to say grainy. It's like kind of blurred in a way. I don't know how to explain it. Distorted image of a person, potentially Cole Phelps. It's hard to see. The person's completely silhouetted, and there's a light on him, and there's a hard shadow on the wall that he casts. And the main menu is completely animated, so he's like moving around, the shadow moves and whatever. And there's the menu buttons are shadows on the wall, because Noire, the shadows are kind of a big deal in Noire. And there's also this thing that ejects you completely on the top right. It says it's the Rockstar Social Club in nice neon lettering, so that's wonderful. But luckily that never appears again past the main menu. When you enter the first case, you're in that dark alley, and it's like, oh, this feels very Noire-like. It's very dark for one. This is one thing. You have a flashlight with you, and that is how. I mean, okay, game shadows aren't the greatest, but and hard shadows are specifically something that games have a hard time doing. So that kind of is working against them. For reasons of sampling, you need more sampling on shadows to get hard shadows, and that's kind of an issue for performance reasons. So yes, but after
it's a
you
hard
get to
style to pull off real time.
I think it's easier when it's just dark. I think when you're in a dark alley, it's nighttime. It's easier to get away with things when there's no light.
Yeah.
But when the rest of the game
you start from
day,
you start from dark and add a hard light source is actually easier. Actually makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. Yeah, the rest of the game, pretty much, as far as I've played, takes place during the day, pretty much. So, as well as that, Kikara says, "Is there a Twitter for shaming bad UX design because the menu belongs on it?" Actually, I don't mind it. The image is a little bit jank, but I actually don't mind it. Is there an issue? I'm not seeing it. I don't know. UX specifically, user experience, huh? I don't know. I thought it was just all right. Puts you in the vibe. I don't know when you open the game. I guess not. But yeah, so that's that. I believe there's something I literally saw my notes. I was like, oh, I forgot to say it, and then I forgot what it is. So I have a lot of notes here. A lot of it is not worth saying, or things that I've said already in passing or anything like that. So I'm looking, but one random detail I also noticed that a little trick they tried to do to make it a little bit less hard on them to develop this game. There are phones in the game that you can use to there's those public phones on the streets that you can talk to people with. Or you're essentially always calling, I don't know what they call it, but it's like a what do you call it? A phone operator. You talk to a phone operator, right? And I also noticed that whenever you talk on the phone, the game's camera always puts the camera behind your back, and I'm fairly certain they do not animate your mouth moving. It's just a random thing I noticed. Because the face doesn't move around it. You know what I'm saying? You should be able to tell that the mouth's moving. You can see the side of the face because your muscles still move around your mouth, but it's not a thing. That's it. Overall impressions. The game very ambitious, and I enjoy what they were trying to do with it. I think that there were a lot of shortcomings that a lot of small things that kind of added up to big things, or to big, to it feeling big. So yeah, it was good. I suppose I would recommend. I'd say, but nothing that blew me out of the water. But I really do appreciate the ambition.
Cool. I really like watching some of the gameplay and listening to you talk. I'm like, anytime something in the 40s happens, and particularly noir, it just makes me want to write something noir. So if there's anybody out there who wants to partner on a game, I'm totally game to write a noir title, or to help with that, because that just sounds super fun.
I had an old concept for a video game that I did a little bit of planning and 3D modeling for, actually, not, and a little bit of coding for it as well. It was very strange concept. It was noir in only visual style, not in terms of like story or anything like that, like plot. I just like the noir style, and it was about like it wasn't even in like the noir typical like time period. It was like literally a robot. You play as a robot or something like that. It was a Mirror's Edge type game where you're doing parkour. I don't remember the entire thing. I don't know. It's something about like parkour and like you're a robot and you have telekinesis powers or something, and noir or something. I don't remember the entirety of it, but it was something weird.
Yeah. No, I think we need more like. I feel like it hasn't been a long time. It's been a long time since a story game has like taken the headlines. Story-driven game
I don't know
has
about
taken
that.
the headlines. Oh, is that am I completely wrong?
Well, there's Starfield that like just came out, right?
Oh, I thought it sucked.
Has very polarizing reviews. Either you love it or you hate it type situation.
No, I mean like instant classic, type.
Oh, instant classic. Well, I'm trying to think of like Starfield isn't. I'm thinking like Starfield isn't linear, which I guess doesn't require it anyways. But it's instant classic. I know a lot of people liked. Well, this is a few years ago. I was gonna say God of War, the original one. That was quite a few years ago.
That was a long time ago now.
Yeah, it was quite a long time ago actually.
And so if anyone is interested in doing something interesting,
not the original one. I remember the original one was old. I'm thinking about the one that won Game of the Year. God of War Ragnarok, I think this is called, right? Which is still a couple years old, I think. But
well, yeah, it is interesting. But offer stands. If you got an interesting concept, you want to melt it with some interesting writing, I'm your guy.
Well, hey, I've talked about this before, but that's like my favorite styles of writing music. So.
Oh, there we go. We've got. Wait, why don't we just those three? We could just do this. Mixed media noir.
little mini game type situation.
Honestly, I'm down.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
There's also Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate is story driven. I suppose, but it's very open ended, so I don't know if you'll consider that.
I don't know why I've never heard of it, but I don't think
Baldur's Gate 3. It was the story of them. It's the third one specifically that is popping recently.
Yeah, never
broke some records for concurrent users. So
nice.
But yeah, that's all I have for my segment. So yeah, I guess we can move on to the next. Oh, look, K-Harris is saying something, so I suppose I will speak slowly to Saul. You stop typing. No. Okay, never mind. I will continue on, I guess. All right. Well, if you enjoyed this segment of the podcast, please stick around for the next segment. If you're watching live, we're doing Arguing with Reddit, Film Edition. And make sure... okay, we got some messages, actually. Kiara said, Baldur's Gate 3 is a pretty new thing. It might be a massive for a game review. I do want to play it. I want to try it, yeah. But I wouldn't mind hearing on Irving... on the new D&D movie.
I've heard about it, but I don't know anything. Like, I just know that it exists. That's, like, literally the extent of my knowledge. So.
Oh. By the way, so that's relevant because Baldur's Gate 3 is a D&D type game, essentially. I believe it's. I don't know. It's like gaming like a sacrilege. I'm not entirely. I don't completely understand D&D, but I believe Baldur's Gate is like some like adaptation of some form of D&D or something like that. I don't know. But
Chris Pine is the main character. That's fascinating. Okay, I got to check this out. 100%. It's got like IMDb, which tends to be actually quite low, is what I've noticed at least. It has a 7.3, so that's pretty good.
These images look very comically like
yeah,
it looks kind of corny, Like,
yeah, I assume it's on purpose.
I hope so. It looks like it gives me like Aragon / like Avatar live action, as in like the benders, not the blue people one type. Like what I'm saying? Like
yeah, it gives me like if Vitaly Versace had had a gaffer. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it.
KR says Baldur's Gate and several other CRPGs and the new D&D movie are all in the same official D&D setting. I would describe it as substantially better than the live-action Last Airbender. Okay.
It has. I mean, it seems as though people like it, so I'll have to check it out.
Okay. But
yeah, 93% on for audience score on Rotten Tomatoes and 91 on critics. So that's
wow. Okay.
Yeah, gotta check it out.
All right. Yeah. That is the end of this podcast segment. As I was saying before, if you like this segment, stick around for the next. If you're watching on what do you call it, the VOD, well, actually, you can still stick around for the next because they're not. Yeah, you just keep watching the video. Never mind. Guys, so moving on to film. Argument with Reddit.
Sweet. All right, and here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
And welcome back to Mixed Media. If you're listening in post, if you're listening live, thanks for sticking around as we continue our show into this new segment, which will be Arguing with Reddit. Let me switch. Actually, yeah, let me switch to the correct screen here. And if you're new to the show, Arguing with Reddit is a segment where we talk about hot takes from the internet. So my co-hosts here find some thing for me to react to about movies, probably, and I react to it live. But before I do that, we should reintroduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
Sweet. So, as usual with these Arguing with Reddit segments, I'm just going to pretty much jump right into it. And Nathan, if you want to... Ben, if you want to describe to me what the take is.
Let me try and remember. Let's see. Oh, yes. This person says they've made a list of movies to make their husband feel something. So they basically say that their husband, when they watch films, this person says they don't feel any serious emotions. He likes the films that his wife's introduced him to, but he feels like nothing makes him sad or grosses him out. So his wife is trying to come up with films that will make him, cry or make him feel some kind of emotion. She suggests something called The Last House on the Left, Prisoners, I Spit on Your Grave, Bone Tomahawk 5, Antichrist, and there are a whole bunch of other suggestions in the comments. Basically,
okay.
Yeah. So basically, this person is looking for a list of good films that are going to make someone who doesn't normally feel emotions when they watch a film feel emotions.
Well, that's tough because I don't know your husband. I know that you gave some suggestions, but unfortunately, I've never seen any of those. Nor have I actually heard of maybe literally any of those. So that's cool. But I mean. She says he tells me the internet desensitized him at a young age. Well, maybe this is kind of not what you're asking for, but he can resensitize himself by taking a break from the internet, which is a spicy take. That's probably the hottest take I've probably ever spat. I don't know about that, but. Well, it's probably the one that will result in the least action because I think people are very stuck with their internet habits. But and me too. I'm not trying to say I'm any better. But I mean, one thing that can work well for anybody in terms of appreciating art better is to be less overloaded by just sensory input all the time. And a lot of times when you do that and you come back to things, you come back at them with a more sober mind, if that makes sense. Like you can more easily discriminate between what is just junk food, or or the equivalent in media versus what is actually kind of good and pleasing to the soul, right? So that'd be my first suggestion. My second suggestion would be, and again, without knowing your husband, would be to I don't know. It sounds like these things sound like dramas. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing from their titles. Somewhere on the drama spectrum. And if he likes those, you can maybe dip into even more dramatic things. I don't know how... I don't know your husband, but you can go all the way to melodrama if you really want to, which is a dangerous zone, but maybe there's some good stuff in there if you're willing to look. Nothing comes to mind particularly. Maybe stuff related to real life, like based off of real stories or including real footage, might be a little bit more moving. But honestly, I think the biggest thing that comes to mind when reading this is maybe do some sensory deprivation. Fasting, right? The traditional word for that. Fast from things. It's good for you. And then come back to them. So that would be my overall take.
There are a lot of suggestions for Field of Dreams.
Never seen it.
Comments. You've never seen Field of Dreams?
No, I have not seen it.
How have you never seen Field of Dreams, Irving?
I have not seen a lot of things I should have seen. I do know that.
It's okay. There's a lot of things I haven't seen too. So, but I have seen Field of Dreams.
Wait, I'm looking this up. I may have seen this. No, I have seen this. I have definitely seen this.
Yeah, the film about the guy who builds a baseball field.
Oh, I've absolutely seen this.
Cornfield in Iowa.
I think my parents might have. They might either have the VHS or I've seen it like maybe 15 years ago on TV, like multiple times, because it's something that would. It's
everywhere. Yeah, it's kind of a classic of like a good family Americana film.
Yeah, quite Americana. I do remember that. There's some imagery from here that actually stuck in my mind, like particularly the cornfields. Very interesting. That's probably pretty good. It's probably pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. Like it's got a really good message, about like father and son relationships.
Cool.
Yeah, and really great music too. I don't know. I'm trying to remember if I have to look at like the exact sequence of it. I don't know if that's like the film Horner did right before Titanic. Maybe he did something else in between that and Titanic. But it's like Horner in the same kind of the same era as his Titanic, in the same kind of style generally as his Titanic score.
Okay, cool. I've got to check that out again. But yeah, there you go. There's a suggestion for Ben.
Well, a lot of people mentioned it in the comments, but actually, it's a nice film. Yeah, a lot of people also mentioned Grave of the Fireflies, which I have not seen, but I have heard is pretty.
That's very high on my watch list for sure, and I hear it's probably the most depressing movie ever made. I used to like prior to getting married. I think I've cried for like maybe 2 movies total. Like actually shed a tear. After getting married, completely different story. Brain chemistry has probably changed entirely. I cry all the time now. but so I feel for the sort of like dispassionate, but like even being sort of dispassionate, it's a different kind of enjoyment. And if you're not a very emotional person, if you are a very emotional person, it's hard to describe the type of like sort of dispassionate enjoyment you can have in art. Maybe that's a topic for another day. Although emotions are great. Let's see. I'll pull one of mine next. Actually, I pulled 2. One of them is supposed to be short, and kind of also because I wanted to see Ben react to this one. I just thought it
Oh
was really
boy.
fun. So, let's see. Let me pull it up here. Film festival music licensing help. Hey everyone, I'm 17 years old and just completed my first short film. Congrats, by the way. And now want to enter it into a few short film competitions. I used 3 songs from an artist named Luke Atencio, and I'm wondering whether I need to license his music for the festival. I received a quote from MusicBed that came back to $300 USD, which is way out of my budget. Are there any workarounds to this? All comments are appreciated. And then really particularly what I wanted Ben to react to is... honestly, festivals can be irregular when it comes to licensing music. It's very unlikely this label will come after you for using their music. I've seen short films with no budgets that use songs that could cost tens of thousands of dollars to license for use. If your film isn't competing, then it should be fine. So, yeah, Ben, is it okay for someone...
Well...
We're not talking about like some One Direction song, and they're not like they're so big and whatever. Like obviously I still don't endorse it, but like we're talking about somebody who's selling their music for $300. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is kind of a question of like, if you can rob a bank and you're going to get away with it, should you do it? Yeah, you can probably do it, and you can possibly get away with it. That does not make it the right thing to do. Right? This poor guy, this poor I can't remember the name of the artist is. You're stealing from him.
You are.
Even if even if you feel like it's gonna make very little difference. It's the guy's livelihood. It's
so the part that really annoys me about this, and I'm not trying to like be mean to this 17-year-old. Although you're 17, you're old enough to understand these things. But just like you have difficulty making a short film at 17 years old with no money, think about what the composer is going through to sell their music for $300, which might sound like a lot to you because you're probably going to make negative money on your film, but the composer is making negative money on their music. It doesn't look like that, but take the hours that they put into it, and how many people do you think are buying a license? You and 2 other people. Is $900 enough to cover... I don't know, however many hours of work it takes to put things together. And I don't know if it's recorded or if it was electronically made, but either way, stuff costs money. So just like it costs money for you to operate, costs money for the composer to operate. So you should I don't like the attitude, and I guess in this sort of conversation on Reddit, of not wanting to be able to... I get it if you just don't have the ability, then that's that. If you don't have the ability, you don't have the ability, but then you can't use it, right? That's just the trade-off. But if you, I feel like there should be an attitude of wanting to give that money to the composer because you're helping an independent ecosystem, instead of some big studio.
Look, if nothing else, if it's too much money for you, you find some other music you can use, right? That isn't going to cost you that. It's probably not going to cost you much in your filmmaking career. It's not like you're going to lose some competition and then your filmmaking career is over. Right? That's the worst thing that can happen. You find some other music that you can use for free or whatever. Or you find someone who will do something for you for free or a little bit of money or something. You buy them lunch or something. I don't know. Or you do it yourself. Worst thing can happen is you're 17 years old, your short film wasn't you didn't win Cannes, right? Okay.
Yeah,
and the best thing that can happen, right, is either way you should walk away from this with a lesson learned, right? That
you didn't budget.
This stuff costs money, and you want to think about this. Don't wait until the last second, to have you've already submitted your film to a competition festival, and then you're like, oh wait, maybe I'm supposed to pay someone some royalties for this music that I've used. So a good lesson in the future. Think about this kind of stuff as early as you can.
Absolutely. I think this person should take this as a lesson, and anyone else who's thinking about making a short film. And it's okay. You're 17. You made a mistake with your first, like, this. You're going to make mistakes till the end of time. And you know, as you are earlier on, you're going to make bigger mistakes. That's fine. I'm not trying to be, you know, overly critical. The point is, though, the lesson to be learned is a critical aspect of your film, like music. It's just not like we're talking about, did you have like some random poster in the background, you know, licensed, you know, that has like some logo on it. We're talking about like a core aspect of your film. If you don't have it in mind from the start and budgeted for, everything costs you money. I believe if you're making something that you want to submit to film festivals, it had to have cost you something. You know, I don't care if it's like all sort of not cash out of pocket, right? Like, even if it's just your time, even if it's like the equipment you already had, you had to buy that at some point. Like, things costed you money. So when you were thinking about, okay, it's time for me to make a short film, one of the tools you should have said is, do I have music? Well, that's one of the questions you should have asked yourself. And do I have a plan for music? And then you should have planned that from the start. If you knew that you wanted Luke's music, it might have been very smart of you to have talked to him before you even made the thing. You have no idea what would have happened. He could have been like, you know, I really like your concept. I just want to be attached to your project. I don't sell very often anyway, so I'm just going to give it to you then. But now that you've made it, I mean, Luke might just be insulted that you thought you could get away with stealing his music before the festivals. And then the second thing is, of course, we have something that's very true in the second comment, which is that many festivals ask for licensing for music, and that's been my experience too. Submitting to festivals, of course, it was an issue because me and Ben, you know, that was our project, but you know, they do ask. So you know, if you're planning to submit to festivals, it would have behooved you to make sure you knew all the standards involved as well. Not that stealing ever is okay, but you know what I mean. So that I just thought that one was a little funny. I just didn't like the attitude and the responses. This person being curious and having to learn is one thing, but to say, they won't notice is kind of like, bruh. Okay. Let's see here. So, Nathan is next, if you want to explain to me what yours is.
Sure. So, the title is Advice for a Freshman in College Who Wants to Get into Filmmaking from R/S Filmmakers. This person kind of gives a little bit of an overview about like the situation, I guess. Been trying to be a filmmaker for the past 6 months, just essentially doing a lot of research. And the question just sums up to what's at the end, which is, where does it start? So I was wondering, to people who are living that dream of making their own shorts or films, what would you tell a 19-year-old in college who wanted to learn more about / start making their own films / shorts?
Wow, okay, so before I answer that question, there are a few chats that I missed earlier. So Stephanie Costello says, saw something on YouTube recently about the music from Platoon, Adagio for Strings by Berber, being the saddest music ever. It always makes me cry when I hear it. Samuel Barber is the correct name.
Samuel Barber, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard of it, so I don't know if Ben has, if he thinks it's the saddest music ever.
It's kind of a classic. I don't know. It's a little bit overused, maybe. I don't know. Barber is nice and melodic, but you know, saddest piece of music. Gosh, I'll get back to you in a few minutes with some like truly like
devastating.
Yeah, I'll get back to you.
Then Kai says, if you're 17, you have that one friend with FL Studio or MuseScore and some VST music. Come on, put your friend on. Like, come on. Like, don't do your friends like this. Like you know, there's some guy, and he might not be that great now, but you can work with him especially if you budgeted your time properly to get it done right.
Yeah, and like, at that level too, like you could just say like, I'll buy you dinner or something like that. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you don't have to pay them like, $600 or I don't know, whatever. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Also, $300. I know it's a lot of money. I'm not going to say it's not a lot of money, but you know, like you can do things to get $300 in a relatively short period of time. So that's also a suggestion. Kai also says, like Ben said, just buy them a hot dog or whatever. Yeah, exactly. More chats. Stephanie Costello says, wait, I was writing that comment during the Reddit. Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, I know, I got you. Okay. So to this question. Man, I mean, if there was only like a static piece of advice I would give people, the world changes so rapidly. My insight on everything changes so rapidly. If you asked me this when we just started doing the show, I'd undoubtedly have different answers than I do now. And, if you ask like Martin Scorsese, his perspective is going to be valuable, but it's also going to be kind of irrelevant in a lot of ways because of, he came up in a very different economic and whatever environment. So it's a very hard question to answer. But I can't understate two things. You have to know how the world actually is. And that hooks up into, I think these days you need to be way more entrepreneurial than you ever had to be. I think it's becoming kind of required. And those two things are very difficult and require a ridiculous amount of time. Oh, well, there's a third thing. You have to be good. There's no substitute for being good. I've said this all, on the show many, many times when I talk about things that are sort of like surrounding film, whether it's business or whatever, but there's no substitute for being good. If you're not good, then, unless you have a rich uncle who can deliver you billions of dollars, there's no chance. You have to be good. So, that would be my first suggestion. If you're not into those things, which I understand people aren't into those things, people don't have an aptitude for those things, I get it. But first try. And that's very vague because that doesn't tell you how to try. But you could go through the podcast and watch some of the stuff that I posted about business stuff, for example, to get started. But otherwise, there are ways to sort of shortcut this process, but you might get punished for doing it. So one way I thought of recently, I think I was telling Nathan about this the other day. It's kind of a risky thing to do, and kind of completely unorthodox. But one thing any artist can do is you can buy a business. Now, hear me out. Relax. You don't have to have millions of dollars to buy a business. And when I'm talking about buying a business, if depends on what you're trying to do. So if what you're thinking as a filmmaker, because filmmaker doesn't mean anything to me, you could want to be a director. A lot of directors say they're filmmakers. Me too, but it's such a general term. What does it mean, right? So, but let's say like what you want to do is you want to produce films, right? Specifically, you're a producer type of person. You want to get films made, and you want to get them distributed. Well, there are a lot of tiny, just about profitable distribution companies that either have an owner who's tired or an owner who is retiring. And you can buy their business for rather cheap. There's a bunch of due diligence that goes along with that. But what happens is you get to shortcut a huge chunk of time. I regret not doing this, basically. This is why I'm saying this now, because I learned this recently, that it wasn't actually as expensive as I would have imagined to do something like this. And I regret not doing it, and it's not possible for me anymore because I've dumped too much money into my own business for it to be possible. But let's say you were to go into some industry, you were making, I don't know, $50,000 a year, doing something, not film, necessarily, and you saved for about 3 years, you'd probably have enough money for a down payment on a production company that was really small if you were lucky and the timing was right. Anyway, that's a completely out there sort of unorthodox way of going about it, but one that I think is way more possible today than it had been in the past. Okay. The other thing I would say is if you really don't want to take risks, you're not a risk-taking type person, it's similarly risky in a way that I think people don't understand to just make short films over and over and over again and expect to somehow make it by doing it that way. Making a short films is not ever going to be profitable unless you're extremely lucky. It's not a medium people watch, and that's the fundamental problem. I mean, when was, like, just being honest to this college student, when was the last short film that you watched not for the purposes of study but for the purpose of enjoyment or whatever? You know, I mean, the avenue used to be with short films used to be being shown before an actual film, and that doesn't happen anymore. So, you know, and that wasn't even going to pay you that much. That was going to get your name out there, which is obviously very valuable. But that doesn't even happen anymore. So, outside of, like, 2 Disney short films, like, you know, animated films before, like, you know, an animated picture, it doesn't happen anymore. So, if that's your goal, that's the wrong goal. Your goal with short films should be to get better at filmmaking. And you should be willing to take an L on all those short films that you're making, anything that you make, as a payment for learning the lesson. You know, so if it's going to cost you $10,000 to make a short film, don't expect to recoup any of it. And please, like, 100%, don't put it on your credit card. Please, I beg of you. I see this actually more often now than I did before. I think it's because the availability of credit has gone through the roof. People are able to get, like, things like, you know, those, like, for paying for or whatever. Like, all that stuff is actually pretty great if you're good at business, but if you're not, and you're just like, I'm going to make my 10K back because my concept is so good, you could have the best concept in the world and you're not making 10K. So, please, don't put it on your credit card. Instead, part with the 10K as if you're never going to see it again, and be happy to do that to learn the lesson. It might be an alternative for taking some think about it as an alternative for taking some filmmakers, like, master class, you know, or something like this, or taking a bunch of like, it's an educational tool. It's also a networking tool, so you get to meet people who you might want to work with in the future because you have to force to work with people, so that's useful. In terms of, like, going from the short film and learning how to be an actual good filmmaker and studying the craft and then going into the actual industry, there's the traditional way, which is sort of grinding your way upward, and I just don't think that's very viable anymore. And that kind of leaves it to, like, well, then so how? And that's such a huge question. It's hard for me to, like, cover it in this show. But just first, your craft. Second, when you have the wisdom from knowing that you are competent at doing what you're doing and however way you want to do it, look at the landscape around you, try to understand it for real, and develop a plan that has tangible steps, like a 2-year, a 5-year, and a 10-year sort of, like, goals, and ways to reach those goals, and watch other episodes of the show. I know that was completely unsatisfactory, but I would have to talk for, like, 2 hours necessarily, you know, just to just to scratch the surface of this question, so I'll just leave it there. So there you go. In short, it's very hard, and honestly, I'm a little demoralized myself, so we need kind of a revolution in filmmaking to sort of get back to a more sane place with how many people can make films, basically. Okay, and then I had this last one. I know it's 4, but I had this last one that I picked for myself real quick. Let's see here. Actually, this is kind of related. Video editing is such a hard field to break into, and then there's a whole long thing about, like, how this person, you know, what this person's situation is. They're introverted, they find that certain jobs are too competitive, and that they feel like they should have chosen a different career that was more plentiful. Okay, well, this one's a little bit more positive because we're talking about a very specific thing, which is video editing. And this person didn't say narrative editing, which would be a lot less, that would be a lot more depressing. But if we're just talking about general video editing, this is a gigantic field today. I know this because I do this all the time. And it's not as impossible as it looks like. So it depends on how you're trying to do it. The number one piece of advice I want to get across with this one is please don't undersell your skills for two big reasons. One, you are not going to get high quality clients by charging very little money, which means you're going to spend way too much time dealing with like nonsense BS. I did it at the beginning, trying to sort of begin a business. I did way underpaid editing work, and there's no point in doing it. People will pay you probably 5 to 10 times more than what you think they would actually be willing to pay you, and the customer pool is still high enough that you don't actually have to vie too hard against other people to get those jobs. Merely charging more, I'm going to say this because this applies to video game people, applies to music game people, applies to everybody. Merely charging more makes people think you're better. Merely charging more makes people think you're better. Now, is that a substitute for being better? No. You actually have to justify the cost by being good enough that when the person receives the product, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I paid $1,000 to this. I got $1,000 of value out of it. But what happens when you deliver a $1,000 product for $100 is the person thinks that the quality is 10 times less automatically. So you're punishing yourself. So what you really need to do is charge a lot more.
I agree.
And I remember we had a conversation, and maybe it was some other arguing with Reddit or like some other show, but I remember 99 Crime was talking about, it was about movie theaters. And I asked 99 Crime how much he would charge to make an arcade, novel arcade box for a movie theater chain, and he came up with like a number that I think was like maybe 4 times, 5 times less than it should be, just like on a base logical level. Please do not think about how you think of yourself. You're an artist. You have no idea what yourself is worth because you are insecure like every other artist. And I'm insecure like every other artist about the stuff that I make. Just make the number bigger and watch the magic happen. It's much better that way. And I still don't charge enough. And you will never charge enough because you're worth way more than what you think you are. So you got to train yourself to think in that mold. The second thing is when you don't charge enough, you push everyone else down. And that's sort of a collective action sort of argument that I guess doesn't ever materialize in any actionable way from a group dynamics perspective, like from a game theory perspective. But I think if one by one we sort of start to slowly realize what our actual worth is, hopefully the entire ocean, will move up and people will actually start to charge more sane prices. Everybody on Fiverr who charges $30 to edit a 5-minute, home video, that person is doing the same logic that you are probably doing, which is, if I start this small, I'll get work immediately, I'll make a name for myself, and I'll grow. You're wrong. I did that. You're absolutely wrong. Maybe not for $30 ever, but but you're wrong. And no one will ever know who you are because that person who pays $30 does not respect anything that you make, and they will not tell anybody about you. They're not involved like that. And on top of that, you make it, you will burn out so quickly that you'll just be replaced with another $30 person. Basically, Fiverr is a bunch of people who are going to burn out in 5 months on rotation. So don't compare yourself with those people. Just don't, Just do your own thing, make sure you understand industry standard rates and discount yourself accordingly if you're not as good as you need to be, or premium yourself accordingly if you're better, than the average service. So that'd be my biggest advice. But make sure, just on basic levels, make sure you have a website. Make sure you have good SEO on that website. Make sure you have a target audience in terms of who you're editing for. If you're doing social media editing, advertise yourself that way. Don't make the mistake of just being a name and thinking that people will somehow care about you. You need to have work to flaunt, and the skills to back it up, and the price to back it up is really the biggest thing you want to get through here. So that's that. Charge more. There you go. Like Kai, here's a good example. Kai was saying, I think him and 909 Crimes game, I don't know how long it is, but let's just say it's 5 hours.
It's not 5 hours.
Oh, how long is it?
I think it's just the game jam is probably like way shorter, like considerably shorter.
Okay. An hour?
Probably shorter than that.
Oh, okay.
It's probably actually like a bite-sized game. I haven't played it, but given that it is a game jam submission for like a game jam that's it's a month long actually. That's a pretty long game jam. But it was typing right now, so I'm sure he'll tell us the actual stat. But the game jam games typically are very, very short.
Okay.
You said 30 minutes. First time to beat.
Okay, that is actually pretty short. So maybe the price you quoted is actually like, I don't know games enough to know. It's probably 2 to 3 hours if you discover you really like it. I see. Okay. Well, I think he said that he wants to sell it potentially for $3. Maybe that's actually reasonable at that time. But if it gets Steam worthy, probably 1 to 3. Oh, so you're planning on raising it. Okay, so let's say it ends up being 2 hours at the end. $3 is you could probably swing more than that. And actually, what might happen to you, what you might find that happens, is that people will reverence your game more. They'll take more care of it. Analogy and analogously, I can't speak. If you charge $6 for it, there's like a weird effect that happens there. Just don't overcharge. So think about the actual value of the experience and then go accordingly. People aren't going to, I suppose, they're not, $3 difference is not going to break anybody's bank, if you get what I mean. So don't think about it from your own perspective. Think about it from a sort of more abstract perspective. Okay, that's all I got from arguing with Reddit.
Nice.
I'll just add, since I said I was going to come up with something sad, or maybe not sad, but I think if I had to pick one piece that might make, well, I'll just think about, talk about myself. I can't speak for you. In terms of getting me to cry, probably Mahler 9. I'd say there are certain moments in it, but just the totality of it. That's my pick.
Okay. Yeah, Mahler's a time.
Yeah. I've only seen the Ninth Symphony once in live performance, and it's hard to get through, even just as an audience member.
I'm not qualified enough in classical music to have favorites, but Mahler is one of my favorites, by a large margin. Very, very emotional. Okay, so that's me on arguing with Reddit. So now we'll go on to our last segment of the day. So thanks for watching this segment, and stick around, stay tuned. Here we go.
Mixed Media Music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music, the portion of Mixed Media Podcast dedicated to all things music, with a particular emphasis on media music and on classical music. And I am your host today, or I'm your host, not today.
Always.
host of Mixed Media Music. I'm the host of Mixed Media Music. My name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer, and I'm assisted by my two co-hosts. I'll let them introduce themselves.
So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
My name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a video game developer and 3D modeler.
Okay, so let's see. Let's make sure I have the right page for my notes. Okay, cool. So today on Mixed Media Music, I'm going to be reviewing the new album Voices by the Danny Jonokuchi Big Band. I believe this is the Danny Jonokuchi Big Band's first album. Danny Jonokuchi is a really fantastic New York-based jazz trumpet player, and he has two groups that he works with and leads. Both the group featured on this album, Danny Jonokuchi Big Band, and he also has a small combo group called Danny Jonokuchi and the Revisionists. If you are a Lindy Hop fan, the Revisionists do a lot of they're primarily a swing group, and they play pretty frequently at things like the International Lindy Hop Championship, and really great music for the Lindy Hop dancing community. But I believe this is, again, the first record for the Danny Jonokuchi Big Band, which is the group he's focusing on more at the moment. So I figured I would check that out. Now, I love his group's music in general. So I pre-ordered this album, and I got the special, very limited edition CD of copy of Voices, as well as digital download. So I actually have a hard copy of this. I know we've been talking quite a bit about, with Nathan anyway, but collecting hard copies, collecting CDs. So I do have this CD. I've been having it in my car right now. Yes. Yes. So, okay. So, again, looking at some jazz music, and we've done this a little bit. I think I reviewed another big band album after the Grammy Awards. What the group that won best large group jazz, or something along those lines. So here we have a very different album. Although Danny Jonokuchi actually played is one of the trumpet players on that other album. I'm not sure exactly what the title of that is, but you can probably find that in our catalog if you want to hear me talking about that. My other review of jazz music. Okay, so this album just came out this month, or maybe it came out September 1st or August 31st, something like that. But within the past month. And the premise of this, not really premise, but the concept of this album, as the title suggests, Voices, right? It's all vocal. Well, it's not vocal jazz, but every track has a vocalist singing on it. And it's 11 tracks with 11 different vocalists. I believe they're all New York City-based jazz vocalists. 10 women and one guy. Charles Turner is the guy. Really fantastic musician as well. If you like this sort of stuff, definitely check out Charles Turner. Okay. So, I'm, coming at this from the perspective of someone who's not the world's most knowledgeable, jazz fan. Also coming at it a little bit from the perspective of thinking about danceability as well. So I'll note that, in contrast to Danny Jonokuchi's earlier albums with the Revisionists, I would say that in general this album is not as tuneful, and in general doesn't have as many things that are great songs for people in the kind of Lindy Hop or other swing dance communities, although it does have a few. That's not necessarily like a knock against it. But for instance, if you compare it to the last album that he released, which is I think like All Together, album with the revisionist, smaller group, and it came out in 2021, and it's actually I think only the one track on it is recorded live. Everything else is recorded during the height of the pandemic. Everyone like kind of submitted their tracks, and recorded them by themselves, and kind of artfully put together, and it's pretty much mostly really good. A lot of standards. There's some standards on this too, but really danceable stuff. Kind of simpler arrangements because it needs to be simple when you're kind of all doing your virtual recordings, right? And I really love that. A lot of really quite memorable tunes on there. So in contrast to that Voices has probably a few more lesser known songs, a couple of standards as well, but he's kind of trying to expand the palette of what he's doing. So I would note that not everything on this album is swing, per se, and really the focus is on arranging more than on like solos and overall vibe and danceability, which I think would be the marker of the albums from the revisionist group. Although I'll say arranging in kind of like the sense of we might call second generation big band stuff, like the Ellington and Basie bands in the late 50s, early 60s. With like people like Quincy Jones arranging for them for Basie, maybe more along those lines. But the difference maybe being that experimenting a little bit more with color and texture than with harmony in the big band palette than you would have gotten when you get from like Quincy Jones with Count Basie. But still, in that sense of later big band music, I guess we call it second generation big band music. Some people call it New Testament big band music is also a name people use for it, where the arrangement of tunes plus solos is what's really important. And it's not earlier style. There are two I guess in the earlier era of big band, we kind of have different more diverse styles. We might have more like tight arrangements, but kind of in a poppier style that you might get from someone like Glenn Miller or Tommy Dorsey, versus early Basie, where it's very riff driven, and with kind of a lot of solos and on top, and like without like a really defined head tune, we'd say. And so again, we're more in like the the world where the arrangement is really important, kind of later big band music, which is what I like personally. I mean, I like a lot of different big band styles, but my favorite stuff is where the arrangement is the most important thing. I know there are a couple of people out there, not most people, but there are some people, like the Lindy Hop dancing community who find that like a heretical position. But yeah, I like stuff in the 30s too, quite a bit. But in general, my preference in all jazz is like second generation big band stuff. Good stuff for noir music as well. Okay, so that's kind of what this album is. Again, focused on big band arrangements, and this is all I think arranged by Danny Jonokuchi. So we really get to see his skill as a band leader and arranger. I don't think he plays on the album at all. There are a lot of strong solos, and in general, they're not in kind of the bebop sort of technical virtuosity, technical flash world of soloing that you might find a little bit more of on like that other album that I talked about a couple months ago. It's still, some of them are a little more technical, but mostly they're kind of still lyrical in their progression. Now, I'd say, like, in contrast to the earlier albums from the Revisionist, there's a much greater diversity of styles on this album, but perhaps not diverse enough for every jazz fan. So, my sense that a lot of people who are, consider themselves just fans of jazz, they probably are looking for less, big band swing, and with the occasional ballad thrown in there, looking for a kind of greater range, stuff moving more into bebop stuff, a little bit more Aladdin kind of stuff. So it's more diverse than like stuff that he's doing just swing music. It's just it's primarily for an audience of people who like swing music, but often tends to be people who do swing dancing. More diverse than that, but maybe not as diverse as some people would like. Which, to me, I was thinking about this, and my question is, what is really the audience for big band music today? Right? You got some people who grew up with Glenn Miller, probably generally probably a little bit older generation, and well, that's what you listen to then. Why not? Why would you go beyond that? I tend to encounter a lot of big band music at like the community level. A lot of like community, all volunteer big band groups out there, at least where I'm from. But that's a different kind of thing than like a really truly like elite professional, New York City all-star group playing big band music. So I wonder like what the audience really for big band stuff is. It's not like most jazz fans that I'm aware of tend to lean more towards like small combo jazz. So yeah, I don't know. It's a question I don't have an answer for. Who listens to big band stuff? Like if you're just gonna play small ensemble swing or even big band but like just swing stuff, you'll find an audience at least of like swing dancers who will listen to your stuff. I don't know who the audience for this exactly is. Maybe it's more in some ways for the musicians themselves. And for Danny Jonokuchi to kind of show what he can do as an arranger. Anyway, that's my kind of musing on that. But I quite enjoy the album. So moving into the actual the tracks, I would say that just purely from perspective, if you want to like do swing dancing to this stuff, you can probably find some of us. Other like slower tracks are probably good for like blues dancing, but that is not something that I do. I do Lindy Hop. So for me, I would say the first track, and the second track, the one I love belongs to somebody else, and All of Me. And the final track, I'm just a lucky so and so. Those would be the ones I would put on to dance to. For Lindy Hop. All right, so moving into the songs themselves, I would say the like obvious top song on this, top two songs, I guess, for me are The One I Love Belongs to Somebody Else, sung by Alexa Brancini. I never heard of her. In fact, the only singer on here I've heard of before is Charles Turner, but her performance is fantastic. I don't really know like a great way to describe it, but she's like an absolute control of what she's doing and expressing in this song, and just really, it's probably the best melody on this album. And she just so much control and power in what she's doing. I'm quite interested in her other vocal works. Research her a little bit more. Just really great, really fun solo. In general, some good solo work on there. Section solos or solis. I'd probably say that's my favorite track on the album. With my second favorite one being what a difference a day made, which is not swing. It is kind of in a little bit of like a samba sort of style, but fast samba, and with a group of 4 flutes and a bari sax for the woodwinds. And if you follow Danny Jonokuchi on social media, he has a post where he breaks down how he you got the video of probably this is what a difference a day made.
This is All of Me.
Oh, All of Me. Okay, never mind. Where he really goes into how he thought about like writing for the flutes. Really fantastic. Not a swing thing, but fantastic. Alita Moses saying that. Again, I don't really know anything about her, but really incredible vocal performance from her. Just some really cool flute harmony in there. I also quite like All of Me. Again, that's the real jazz standard. Now, this is Tahiri Clayton singing. Again, like I said, I don't know any of the singers except for Charles Turner. It's hard not for me to not think a little bit like comparing this to Ella Fitzgerald and her singing All of Me, but it's fundamentally a different thing. Very different sort of arranging style and very different sort of singing style, with a really fantastic trombone solo. So again, really nice track. So the third track is Social Call. I guess also nice, nothing terribly remarkable about it. Now, some of these tracks, some of the longer tracks, I'm not as much of a fan of because I think it's, for various reasons. So, fourth track, let's see. We have Summertime, and okay, that's obvious, about as big a standard as you can get. George Gershwin, and I don't know. This is probably the least impressive track on the album for me, and it's also, I think, the longest. It's like almost 6 minutes long. Nothing like terribly bad about it. Just nothing impressive either. It just gets a little bit monotonous. So when I've listened to this album a couple of times in the car, I generally skip over this one. We have You Turn the Tables on Me. It's kind of a fun little tune. And both the trumpet solo and the saxophone section solos are really nice in that. I think they're the most impressive and interesting, fun part of that song. I mentioned What a Difference a Day Made. Really fantastic writing. I'd love to do something like that as a flute player. Of course, I don't really have a jazz flute tone, so too late for me to learn how to do. Too late for me to be able to do that. But we have a video of that right now. All 4 flutes. Charles Turner in "Blame It on My Youth." I love Charles Turner singing. The song itself is kind of odd. The arrangement, it sounds like the style of writing with like the counter lines and then the harmony and I think probably all 5 players playing flute. It just sounds very much like pretty like generic wind band, wind ensemble writing. Like the harmony and like the way of kind of having a counter line. I don't know. I like that some like in really sparing, it's used sparingly, but that's not really what I want to hear necessarily from big band. I guess it's interesting that you can create that sort of sound without all of like your clarinets and whatever. I just don't know that it really is a great song or that the sort of arrangement does much for this song. But really great singing. Born to Be Blue is kind of goes between like a more blues style and with some really kind of interesting upbeat and faster sections providing contrast to it. Another really fantastic vocal performance. This would probably be a really good song if you are a blues dancer, especially if you want some contrast throughout your song. So Many Stars. Apparently this is somewhat of a standard. I'm not familiar with it. Personally, I don't really like it. It's a ballad, which is good. You want some ballads on your album for variety, I think. But it just sounds to me too much like this literally is pulled from a Disney film. And not necessarily in a good way. Like, it just sounds like a kind of generic, this could have been from any Disney film ever. Nothing necessarily wrong with that, if you like that kind of stuff. But, I don't know. Not necessarily my favorite sort of thing. It just sounds kind of a little generic to me. And I don't necessarily mean that in terms of, like, the writing itself, but I think it's just kind of a song. All or Nothing at All, probably also a good song if you like blues dancing. It's if you like kind of really like low female vocals, kind of really sultry sort of feel, good track. And final track, I Guess I'm Just a Lucky So-and-So, with vocalist Hannah Gill, who apparently is from Maryland, although lives in New York City. I think it's another track where the arrangement is really fantastic and what kind of makes the song. The vocal performance is good, but it's not. There's some other singers I prefer in the and the way they sing this song, but the arrangement of this is really cool. It almost sounds kind of like it belongs in a Steely Dan song. The kind of big band stuff that's going on in the background to support the singer, and I think it's really cool. I think it works very well. Yeah, so that's kind of my speed trip through this album. I highly recommend it, even if I don't necessarily, wouldn't give it every single song on it 5 stars. A lot of really great vocal performances. Some jazz vocalists that I would like to research, listen to some more of their stuff. So yeah, even if you're not a fan of big band stuff, I think it's worth checking out. If you are a fan of big band jazz, well, one, like I said, I want to know who is listening to this kind of stuff today, because, like I said, if it's just swing, then there's probably an audience for it. There's definitely an audience for it, especially with the name Danny Jonokuchi. But if since it's not that, I'm kind of interested in who's going to listen to this, what this sort of audience for modern big band albums is. So if you are a fan of that, let me know. I would love to have a chat about that. And also, I think if you are a fan, I imagine there's a lot to get out of this album, even if it's not necessarily the most diverse album. Yeah, I'd be curious, anybody, what you think of some of the arranging on this. Like I said, I think it's favoring texture over really dense and rich harmony, which you might get from like Quincy Jones, in the late 50s, early 60s with Basie. Yeah, so a lot to like on this album. And I definitely recommend checking it out and checking out some of these singers.
Cool. Yeah, maybe we could maybe you should reach out to Danny to see if he would want to be on the show. He's got a suspicious low amount of subs, so maybe there's a chance he could get on the show.
See, I almost so when he first released he released a few tracks first. One of them was What a Difference a Day Made, which has a lot of really fantastic flute writing on it. And I was kind of curious who the flute players were, so I was talking to my friend, another flute player, and I said, because social media presence, like, he's on Facebook, and like he gets like 5 likes and like 2 comments, and like honestly, I should just comment and ask him who the flute players are. And she's like, "No, don't do that. You won't get a reply. I'll think you're weird." I'm like, "I don't know."
No, do it.
I because I have the actual album itself, I don't even know that you can find it on a digital album, but because I have the physical copy, it actually lists who all the players are, which is nice. Interesting for me too, because I think it'd be really cool to play in something like this, even if I'm not like don't have the classic jazz flute sound, but I would love to play it. I could probably fake it well enough, hopefully, But I'm kind of curious who these players are and like what kind of work they're doing in New York City. Jazz, flute, and saxophone. So that's why I was kind of curious about that. So I don't know. I mean, he is like a pretty famous guy, but
maybe he needs more social media exposure. And also, I mean, even if it doesn't result in that, it might result in a conversation, which might be cool.
I don't know. Yeah, it could be. Well, they're on tour with presenting this album right now. So I'm not gonna. Maybe once they finish the tour in like a month or so, I don't know. Maybe I should reach out to him, see what he says.
Yeah, Ben on the next track.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Well, I guess that's it for the show today.
Yeah.
Want to take us out, Ben?
Sure. Since I missed the opening because my sister called me. I said my parents aren't home, and I was the only one home, and my sister needed me to like open a jar for her while she was cooking. I'm like, sorry, I had to run.
Okay, that makes sense. He just disappeared all of a sudden. I was like, what happened?
I did say something. I don't know if Nathan heard me, but
I did hear it, yes.
Okay.
Oh, I can't hear anything when the intro's going. Yeah.
It's bad time. She happened to just like start, calling my name. Like, I should probably go help her.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening to Mixed Media Music, and if you just tuned in for this segment, or if you're watching in post. And if you're watching live, thanks for watching the whole show tonight. Really interesting stuff from Nathan, giving a really thorough breakdown of LA Noire. A lot of interesting responses to some hot takes and questions from Irving on film and filmmaking. So yeah, a lot of great stuff tonight. So thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave comments. Whatever the equivalent of that is, share it as well, right? If you find something you like or think somebody else would like, let them know. There's a ton of stuff. We have, how many episodes do we have at this point?
This is episode 111, which actually means that we have like probably near 300 topics.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. If you're interested in anything in music, filmmaking, and video games, some other assorted topics as well. A lot of great stuff there. And also you can join us on our Discord. Mixed Media, I think, link, pointing in the right direction, right? Yes. Mixedmediapodcast.com. And You can also check out our locals page where you can support us. A special shout out to our supporters there on locals. Post, Rob Sharma, 99 Crime, Kay Kairos, and Alex Egbert.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Look, tell a man no trouble, I don't want beef, man, I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We pack, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light. That way they know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone vipers. No